But first up for you today, it's commentary of the second test from Brisbane, Australia against England, with your commentary team of Ugo Monye, Chris Ashton and Chris Jones.
Thank you very much, Gigi. As Gigi says, loads going on in the sporting world this Saturday on 5 Live Sport, and it starts in Brisbane. England are out, Australia are coming out. Australia wearing their First Nations jersey to mark NAIDOC Week. They'll also be singing the national anthem in Ugambe language. They're paying homage to First Nations players that have gone before, such as Uncle Lloyd McDermott, the first Wallaby to identify as a First Nations man. And you are getting the sense, Ugo Monye, Drew Mitchell was speaking to us on the pod about the pride they're feeling, how proud they are of their ancestry. They're marking that today. It's quite a connected, cohesive Australia side at the moment, it feels.
Yeah, this isn't the first time they've won this jersey, but speaking to Drew Mitchell just the other day on the podcast, he's generally quite a casual bloke, very funny, very light-hearted, but he got slightly emotional when speaking about it. And Dave Rennie, his imprint on this team, he wants everyone to be able to not just understand how everyone plays technically, but culturally, what does that melting pot of Australia look like, and how do we best represent it? And they're doing it absolutely immaculately today.
England were led up by Courtney Lawes. This is the England team, by the way. Ellis Genge, Jamie George, Will Stewart, the front row. Maro Itoje, Johnny Hill. It's the same tight 5 that started in Perth. Lawes, captains from 6. Sam Underhill is at 7. Billy Vanapola 8. Underhill in for Tom Curry, who's gone home after his concussion. Jack Van Poorvliet and Marcus Smith at 9 and 10 for England. Owen Farrell in the midfield with Guy Porter on debut. Tommy Freeman, another debutante on the left wing. Jack Knoll on the right wing. And Freddie Stewart is at full-back. We have the welcome to country at the moment before we have the England national anthem and the Australian national anthem, and this is the Wallaby side. Angus Bell, Dave Parecki and Taniela Tupou. Matt Phillip and Cadron Neville in the second row. Rob Liotta, Michael Hooper and Rob Ballatini in the back row. Nick White and Noah Loliseo, the halfbacks for Australia. Samu Karevi and Hunter Paisami in the midfield. Marika Korobetti, Tom Wright on the wings, and Jordan Pataya. And just while we go through the formalities, Chris Ashton, this is a place Australia do not lose very often in Brisbane, where they've won their last 10.
No, they don't. It's I mean, just to receive with Ireland and the All Blacks this morning, England got the same challenge on their hands here. They've got to turn it round. They've got one more shot at it. Otherwise, it's over for the summer for England so far.
Yeah, huge game for England. And Ugo Monye, the mental strength of England will be tested today.
Well, I'm just loving this welcome to Australia. Just revving everyone up. We've got to let England know that we are here and we're going to win this match. This is way more than just a 15 or 23. He is humming everyone in Brisbane at the moment to create that gladiatorial amphitheatre, make it as intimidating, pile that pressure on England. And this is what, for me, sport is all about. It's theatrical, it's entertaining, it's culturally respectful, and it all sets up for what should be an absolutely outstanding match.
And this isn't often the case with Australian rugby, that you do really get that sense of the whole country being behind the team. You guys must have had that when you've played places like South Africa, places like New Zealand. How intimidating can it be? Chris Ashton will pick that one up, though, after the anthem, starting with God Save the Queen. Small pockets of England fans around Brisbane, and time now
under the direction
for the
of
Aussie national anthem.
songwoman Auntie Candice Kruger.
Well, a rousing rendition of the Australian national anthem, firstly sung in Ugambe language and then in English. And just that feeling, Chris Ashton, about a whole nation being against you when you play away from home. England are going to feel that now as they get ready for kick-off.
Yeah, it's a pressure cooker. It plays in your emotions. It did with me anyway when I was playing. When you have so long and there's such a build-up to a game, you play the game 5 times in your head before you've even kicked off. And when you get to the kick-off, you can be all emotional about it. And the players have got an experience and we've got some inexperience in the team. Everybody just needs to stay level and find their way into the game.
Is that where the leaders have to come through?
Yeah, and so at times last week they were at fault. It was their ill-discipline that cost the team. They have to be on the straight and narrow today, keep the penalties low and stay in the game, stay with Australia and find a way to win.
Well, England talking about World Cups next year and performance is what matters, but make no mistake, this English rugby public are desperate for a result after a disappointing Six Nations. Eddie Jones has 5 players who are practically debutants. A couple have a couple of minutes, but 3 guys on debut in the 23. As we prepare for kick-off, the man with the ball in his hands is Owen Farrell, 96th cap for the British and Irish line, 3 times a Lions tourist, former England captain, not leading the side on this tour, but he sends it into the Brisbane night sky, where Australia rise high to take it just inside their 22. Matt Phillip in for Darcy Swain with the catch for the Wallabies. Nick White, impressive tash and all, prepares to kick from the base of the ruck. Early stages on 5 Live Sport from Brisbane. Must-win game for England if they're to stay in this 3-match series. Earlier on, Ireland levelling the series with New Zealand. Historic moment for Irish rugby. 23-12 at finish in Dunedin. That one goes to a decider as Smith finds Ellis Genge. Great carry, Ellis Genge right through the guts of the Wallaby defence. Now here's Jamie George. Excellent start from the men in white. Van Porfleet comes to the left. Marcus Smith puts a little kick through, but Corabetti will take that and he will clear. Very good clearance actually from Corabetti. Excellent touch finder from the wing. England broke the gain line, but are now back on their own 14.
Well, if England were accused of being far too lateral last week, where everything has gone through the front door, started with Will Stewart, then Ellis Genge, vice-captain, absolutely banging down Australia's door. Marcus Smith with a searching grubber, puts Corabetti under a bit of pressure and then clears it. A very positive start by England.
What a message. That was Michael Hooper. Ellis Genge just ran straight through.
Laws off the top of the line out, Van Porfleet, Smith out the back, Farrell. Good angle there from the England forwards. It's been lost. Was it illegally so? No, it wasn't. It was actually Guy Porter with his first carry in Test rugby. Now Farrell kicks again, so both Smith and Farrell kicking the ball to Australia. Jordan Patar puts his boot through it. Marcus Smith in the backfield on halfway sends up a kick into the Brisbane sky. That's gone far too far, and Patar will eat that one for breakfast. Free kick to Australia inside their 22.
Yeah, good economy in and around that halfway line. Guy Porter, Eddie Jones is speaking to us in the week about him just searching for those holes, and that's a really lovely line. But Michael Hooper straight away showing his threat of the breakdown with that turnover.
Well, Australia, are they running it from their own 22? Samu Karevi goes wide to Corabetti, who chips over Noel, all on the bounce. Well gathered by Stewart, but he ran into Porter. The Wallabies flood at the breakdown looking for the turnover, don't get it. Van Porfleet, halfway line, 15 in from touch. Billy Vanapola pumps the legs. Van Porfleet goes to Smith in the centre of the park. Now Maro Itoje, England getting their runners into the game nicely. Van Porfleet might be numbers here. Marcus Smith, Farrell to Noel. Big hit coming in Karevi, but Noel managed to ride it well. Van Porfleet on this lush Brisbane turf. It's been watered, which Eddie Jones was talking about pre-match. He wanted a really fast track. Might be a little bit slicker than he thought. As Jamie George again goes on an industrious carry. There for Van Porfleet. There are numbers here for England. Tommy Freeman's off his wing, well shackled. But a lot of England players getting their hands on the ball. Van Porfleet goes to the right, finds Billy Vanapola, who's storming into the 22, the Saracen. He rolls and sets it up. Lightning fast ball for Van Porfleet. Now Itoje throws a dummy. Johnny Hill in there to clear. England only 15 metres out as Van Porfleet finds Smith. Ellis Genge out the back to Farrell. Farrell throws a dummy. Good hands, Tommy Freeman to Jack Noel. Noel cuts inside, just about tackled by Wright. Again, England about 15 metres out. They're asking real questions of the Australians, with the moment of holding firm, but only just. Ball has been lost back on the Australia side. And Australia come away with the ball, and then an ambitious offload doesn't find its intended target. And after all that, I think, guys, we'll have a scrum to England, but a breathless start in Brisbane.
Yes, some brilliant rugby and some hands out on the edge, you know. And Jordan Patar looks like he's in a world of trouble after just a few minutes. Gets his head on the wrong side, trying to tackle Tommy Freeman. And for me, this is automatic removal. So just like last week for Australia,
no foul play,
there were loads of disruption at the start of the match. You're expecting Jordan Pattaya, who everyone's expecting so much from today. James
got his head in the
O'Connor
wrong side,
to come
Andy.
on and replace him, because no HIA needed at this point. Suspicion of unconsciousness, and he's removed.
Just on England's attack, it was outstanding. They were questioning Australia everywhere, moving it from one side of the pitch to the other, hitting options front door and out the back, moving, making Australia work in defence. Just great to see, Jones.
And as Ugo Monya predicted, James O'Connor is stripped and ready to go. Or will it actually be Isaiah Parise? I think it's going to be Parise. So O'Connor was ready to go on, but it looks like Parise will come on. And again, Ugo, reshuffling for the Wallabies. Last week they lost Cooper in the build-up, Banks and Alaalatoa, and they had a red card. And already after 3 minutes and 40 seconds, Parise is having to come on for the stricken Pattaya. And England, I think, have won a penalty, have they? So they have kicked into the corner.
Yeah, it's something that Australians are familiar with, but let's focus on England. That second ball's just been kicked in, but England have been aggressive, they've been quick, they've been all the things that have been wanting them to be all this week. First opportunity, penalty, they kicked 5 metres out, and that was a real area of strength for them last week.
They did score from the rolling maul, England. Ellis Genge was at the bottom of it, and now they will not get a better opportunity to get on the board. 5 metres out, Jamie George to throw, Atoje the target, that slick combination. He drops it to Billy-Vunipola, and they've driven and scored, England. Fantastic drill. Brilliantly done from the visitors, and just what they needed after a tough week. With backs against the wall, they've come and scored after 4.5 minutes. Set move from the line out. Billy-Vunipola powers over, England lead in Queensland.
Yeah, shift drive from England. Use Atoje as the pillar, who then sends the ball to the front of line out. Set up a mini driving maul at the front. It is as accurate as England have been for a long while. Last week they scored a couple of brilliant tries at the end of the game, but this is 15 v 15 and calls for what's England's DNA, what are they about simplifying game plans. Well, it's been front door, set piece try.
Yeah, we asked before the game for the killer edge, to see that from England, and we have seen that in this first 5 minutes. Everything has been England, non-stop, relentless, and they've got to try, deservedly so.
The voice of Chris Ashton and Ugo Monya, regular voices on the Rugby Union Weekly podcast, will be reacting on the whistle after the game in Brisbane. Can England square the series? They've made an ideal start. 5 minutes just over gone. Australia 0, England 5, Farrell for 7. Beautifully done, Owen Farrell. And England have made a fantastic start as they bid to get back into this series. Billy-Vunipola's try, Owen Farrell's conversion, and England up and running.
Yeah, Australia barely fired a shot, have they? Haven't had the ball, it's all been England from that kick-off. It's been very good, and England at their very best have always been known for these quick starts, and after just 4 minutes, what a start England have got into this second test.
Yeah, great point. Remember when England were going well into 2019, they would storm out the box. 2018 New Zealand. The man to my left, Chris Ashton, scoring within a couple of moments. They've had a knack of scoring early. They've lost that over the last few years, but they've got an early try here. It's Billy-Vunipola, and England lead by 7. Australia 0, England 7, as Van Poorvliet clears his lines. And a guy you know very well, Chris Ashton, good clearance kick. Is this man ready for Test rugby, given that he didn't always play in the big games for Leicester last season?
If you're going off the first 6 minutes, yes. He's been in everything good that England have done. He's a solid player for such a young player. He plays way above his years. He's had a lot of good experience in Ben Youngs and Richard Wigglesworth at his club. So yeah, I think he's ready, and so far so good.
What a day of sport, as it always is on 5 Live Sport. Netherlands against Sweden is our commentary in Euro 2022. At Euro 2022, we've got the women's singles final, we've got T20 cricket, Super League's Magic Weekend, the latest from the Scottish Open, Formula 1, Austrian Grand Prix practice. It is all happening across the sporting world as Marcus Smith clears his lines for England, who lead by 7 after 7. And how Australia reshuffle their backline is going to be fascinating. We'll get Ugo Monya on that one. But here's Freddie Stewart, who gathers the kick from Loloseo and dribbles one down the line. Nice kick, but that might be a 50-22. No, it's been well kept in, as it by Tom Wright, but it was a great kick from Stewart, who's put pressure on Wright, who is in danger of giving away a penalty here. He's done that Sevens tactic of dropping the ball. Penalty to Australia. Underhill was all over it, but with elbows on the floor, so a couple of times England could have had the penalty. They didn't. It goes Australia's way. And Freddie Stewart's good kick, chase and tackle isn't rewarded.
The territory game England are playing at the moment is really no nonsense. Marcus Smith, Owen Farrell from the back, and that time it was Freddie Stewart. That chase game's outstanding. Sam Underhill giving away a penalty quite clearly here. Andrew Brace will say that with a headset on. I'm not sure what it's like when you've got your head on the floor trying to compete, but those types of silly penalties is something that was the undoing of England. But 8 minutes 19 seconds into this match is probably the first mistake England have made.
That's Freddie Stewart there at his best. He tracks across the pitch, he works so hard in the backfield, so fit, and then he puts a perfect full-back kick down straight down the touchline to get his team the field position.
Freddie Stewart, a Premiership title winner with Leicester, as is Guy Porter and Jack Van Poorvliet, and the man in the studio, Chris Ashton. Amazing win for Leicester Tigers at Twickenham, and England have a penalty here as the Aussies don't roll away. Maro Itoje, look at that energy. You've played with Itoje, Chris Ashton. When he's on, you hear him all game, don't you?
Yeah, you can never fault his energy levels. I think it's got to a point where it's bothering some people, but I mean, he always brings the energy for the team, and when the team's going well, it's perfect.
This level of momentum is great. That was Australia's penalty, kick to touch. Couldn't get their exit right. England turned it over, and within a couple of phases, Owen Farrell's now elected to kick for points. This could be 10-0 up. They're at the moment running at a point a minute, which is exceptional. It's amazing. Momentum, narrative, hope, mood in camp can all change in just a few moments, because there was a sense of urgency, desperation about this game. But you've got to say, for all of the cultural references and the trying to get the crowd on top of England, it's England who have looked really, really settled in this opening 10 minutes, and Australia forced into yet another early change.
Don't they've had the ball, have they, Australia? When they have had the ball, they've given away a penalty or lost their line out, and Farrell is going for goal, 25 metres out, 15 metres in, the kind of kick he gobbles up. 96th cap. And he's split the post with that one, and England are double digits. Australia 0, England 10, and we've played just over 10.
I think that's what confused us so much last week, because we have got winners in this team, and we've got a lot of experience. I think that's why we couldn't understand why they couldn't finish it off last week. At the moment, we're seeing them at their best. They just need to maintain this start, England.
Right, next score is going to be crucial, because if England get another one, they've got an almighty foothold in this game. You hear Swing Low Sweet Chariot from the small gang of travelling fans who have made the trip to the other side of the world. A place where England won 3-0 in 2016, but their long winning run against Australia was ended in Perth this time last weekend. Through comes Tom Wright to take the kick from Van Poorvliet. Now here's Marika Korobetti. Good tackle, Billy Vanapola, had to be made. Courtney Law's in there, but it's quick ball for White. Johnny Hill was out the line, he knocks it on. I think that was just a knock on, nothing more sinister from Hill. Sometimes you see them given as yellow cards and deliberate knock-ons, but I think he was definitely going for the ball.
Yeah, he certainly was. Australia looking to shoot down that blindside, and Johnny Hill read it really correctly. Uses both hands on the ball, not on the face this time, unlike the first test. But what we do have after 10 minutes, and it perhaps feels slightly weird me saying it as a former winger, we're going to get our first scrum. And there's been so much spoken about Ellis Genge talking about a level of physicality he wants to bring. We've got Tupou, who's now back to Tongan Thor and adds significant weight and value to Australia. So this is the first opportunity for Australia to launch a centre play, because they barely had any ball, but this scrum's going to be fascinating.
And Tupou's done a lot of running in this first 12 minutes.
Yeah, they have Tupou back from his calf injury, the Tongan Thor, but it's a free kick to England.
Yeah, Tupou just angling in. Andrew Brace just saying that he's just trying to get the angle in onto Ellis Genge. It's better than that. Saying just control the weight as Owen Farrell sticks up a horrific spiral bomb. This is a nightmare, but well dealt with by Korobetti.
Horrific in a good way from an England point of view. That was George Ford's style, and how Korobetti, I don't know how people take those. It's swirling all over the place, a tornado spiral bomb, but Australia have managed just to keep possession. And Matt Phillips sets it up, and White's under pressure, and Australia just do not have their shape whatsoever as Underhill comes through on Ballatini, who does very well to shrug off the on-rushing Underhill. Now White comes to left, he's got Itoje all over him, finds Michael Hooper. We've got a dangerous clear out, and Australia have the penalty. So Tupou gives the penalty, where you may have heard Joy Neville, the TMO, the television match official, come over the ref link, and England have a penalty. They can kick this for 13-0.
I just don't agree with that decision. It's been done for a dangerous clear out. I'm just not quite sure how you're meant to clear people out when they're lying on the wrong side and they are 30 centimetres off the ground.
So 3 goals.
Well, we haven't seen a replay of it yet, but 3 gold, Tupou, the man singled out.
I remember seeing it live thinking, and this is it. Tupou's been done for clearing out no arms, but you've got England players lying on the wrong side, like I said, 30 centimetres off the ground. I would say to Andrew Brace, get players from stop rolling on the wrong side, then they're never going to be in a position to be cleared out. What's wrong with that? We've just seen a replay there.
It's just a normal clear out.
It's a clear out.
On
we can have 50 penalties today.
The Tongan 4. I thought it was strange that he was starting. I think he's known for, especially playing at this level, coming off the bench and making that impact. He's had to run round now for 14 minutes. He normally comes on for 30 minutes towards the end of the game and makes a massive impact. He's been running around for 15 minutes. He's not touched the ball.
But he's given away a couple of penalties. We've given away 1 penalty, 1 free kick, and this penalty, again, is bang in Owen Farrell's wheelhouse. Just outside the 22, 15 metres in, up he steps. Nicely done, Owen Farrell. What a start England have made in Brisbane. For all their talk of development and performance, they've got the points on the board. That's the most important thing. Australia 0, England 13 after quarter of an hour.
This game is developing very nicely from an English perspective. Australia haven't had a foothold into the scrum. First scrum they get, they give away a free kick. They can't exit. At the moment, they're not able to play on their terms because England are so aggressive in everything they're doing.
Well, it's been all England in the opening 15 minutes here on 5 Live. Again, we hear Swing Low Sweet Chariot from the travelling fans. We didn't hear that all too much in Perth last weekend. Australia winning to take a 1-0 lead in this series that is fast becoming a very compelling one. So is the Ireland-New Zealand series, as Ireland levelled that one with an historic win in Dunedin. Good kick, Jack Van Porfleet. Tom Wright is bundled into touch. Excellent pressure rugby from England.
Yeah, on the money again. That's his 3rd box kick. Everyone's got great length, and that was just on the edge of the touchline. England managed to put him in touch.
Yeah, perfect execution. And as I was just saying earlier about Australia not able to play the game on their terms at the moment, that's because the level of accuracy, a little bit of pushing and shoving between the Australian captain Michael Hooper and the former captain England Owen Farrell.
It's not a conversation. That's it.
Well, Andrew Brace just having a word there, Root, with Nick White and Ellis Genge, who were on the floor. Genge is pinning down White, which hasn't endeared him to the Brisbane crowd. Doesn't look like any foul play, though, from Genge, or foul play that will further interest the officials.
Well, if you want to stamp it out, that's a penalty against Ellis Genge.
Let's listen in. Andrew
We
Brace.
need to look at the actions of White 1.
And Joy Neville saying we need to look at the actions of White 1, which is Ellis Genge. Here's the replay. Genge tackles White to the floor and then kind of has an elbow and an open palm pressing down White. It might be penalty worthy, Chris Ashton, but nothing more. What do you think?
It's just unnecessary. This is what we're trying to get out of the game. Jonesy, you're telling me that's not... You started with that not being anything.
Well, I suppose I'm in a mindset of, is it red card, yellow card? We've seen so many flashpoints. I think it's a penalty only if it's anything.
Yeah, that's what they've got.
It is a penalty, and it's a second nibble that Ellis Genge just had after the Billy Vunipola try. He ran straight over to Michael Hooper, started banging his chest, and that been spoken about in terms of Swain and his reaction getting him sent off, or was that a deliberate ploy? But everyone understands the level of pressure, how tense it is for both sides. At the end of the day, someone who could get a Series 1 or the series bang on, all roads leading to Sydney next week?
Well, England had the line out, and now the line out is Australians who kicked it. Although they get no distance on their line kicks, Australia. It's weird. Anyway, Australia have it. Valentini, good carry past the on-rushing Billy Vunipola. White, centre field. Bit of ball for Australia for the first time all day. Karevi and Owen Farrell collide. Farrell's done some good ripping work and might be able to get... Oh, well played, Owen Farrell. He's come through there like a flanker, and it's going to be a scrum Australia, but I think Owen Farrell deserved a bit more there. He made a real meal of that Australian attack in a good way for England.
I'm just going on about the Ellis Genge incident. I do love it, especially from a player like Ellis. I know he's given a penalty away, but it just says what you were talking about, Hugo. There's no nonsense. We're here to stand up and we're here to be in front of you. I've seen him go at Hooper a couple of times, Ellis, and now Nick White. Nick White's just got flung out the side of another ruck there. Every chance they get in there, they are winding the Aussies up.
Yep. Fine margins though, guys. You know, you can wind people up, but if you give away penalties, you're giving a huge opportunity for the opposition to get back into half.
At the minute, this looks like England look like they're the home team, taking total control, and that's all caveated because it's still early in the game at the moment. Australia yet to fire off a punch. Owen Farrell, that last defensive set, by the way, was outstanding by England. Absolutely outstanding. Owen Farrell's on our screens right now, just a little bit of blood just shedding from his lips. He's got involved in a couple of big collisions there, but now Australia 40 metres out, centre field scrum. The first one ended up in a free kick to England. They'll be expecting for a lot more now.
17 minutes gone, captivating 17 minutes, much better than the affair that we saw last weekend. That really struggled to get going. That was a slow burner. This one has been lit from the off. As Australia, it's just penalty to England. Australia's scrum wheeled, and Andrew Brace is on the Australians' case at scrum time. Free kick and a penalty. It's Tupou again who's conceded it.
Yeah, he's marched him back 10 metres as well, Andrew Brace, just for chatting. He already said he didn't want to have a conversation at this point. You have to pick your battles. And that is another battleground which England have won. Set piece, tick, line out scrum. Defence, aggressive, winding the opposition up. We probably shouldn't have a column for that, but they're getting rattled, aren't they, Australia? And then the tempo of the game.
In the week as well, he didn't hold back in mincing his words of what he was saying about Ellis Genge and what he wanted to do to the team. So far, none of it has gone his way.
England are 13 points up in Australia in a must-win game. They lose their line out though, just when they had a really good bit of field position, and Nick White has it at the bottom of this ruck with the ball in Australian possession, but the scrum is going England's way. Defensively they look solid. They haven't given the Wallabies a sniff yet. White's kick goes infield, forward comes Tommy Freeman, who plays a lot of fullback. He took that one well. Van Poortvliet fizzes it out to Ellis Genge, who's been very involved, as is his wont. Valentini does the tackling, but not before Genge bustles past the gain line. Deep from Van Poortvliet to Smith, who's sending it back into Wallaby territory. You tell me, guys, that seemed like a bit of a nothing kick from Smith, and it's given the Australians a chance to counter-attack, and they're off. Loliseo over to the far side, and Parise, who's hugging the right touchline, goes over halfway. Therefore, White. Bit of quick Wallaby ball for Dave Parecki, the hooker, who goes over the halfway line. White now scoots back down the short side, finds the effervescent skipper Michael Hooper. Courtney Lawes is there, he wins the penalty, captain on captain. Penalty England, won well by Courtney Lawes.
England aren't playing any rugby on their halfway line. They've only got a couple of faces that's searching and just wanting Australia to play out. So in terms of a tactic, is working well. Australia, yes, they got a couple of soft shoulders and made some yards, but essentially Courtney Lawes, the captain, has won the ball from the place where Marcus Smith kicked it. So in terms of defence, winning this game, which was pretty much the same for last week, I think it's following that same suit. And Owen Farrell now banging the ball into Australia's 22.
And their line kicking is so much better than Australia's. This was the case last week. Farrell's gone 30 plus metres. Loliseo seems to kick it about 5.
It's rugby league touch kicking, no disrespect, Ashley, but they often don't look to take as many metres off. And they're just wasted metres for the opposition.
Yeah, they're absolutely losing their territory battle here, Australia. They're playing into England's hands, and England's defence especially standing up against it.
Jamie George into the line out, finds Johnny Hill. England have already got one try from their maul. Billy Vunipola scoring. They're rolling through Australia again. This is excellent from England. This is the forward dominance that we thought England might deliver last week. They're delivering it in the first quarter in Brisbane.
Neville's in there from Australia, and the Australian second row's come back in. He is slowing that ball down. He's on top of Underhill. Andrew Brace has called for it to be used.
Good spot, Ugo. This has been slowed up, but it is in English possession. And Van Poortvliet switches with Billy Vunipola. Adversaries in the Premiership final, their two clubs, but on the same side today as Van Poortvliet again finds a carrier. Right under the crossbar now. England can go 20 points up if they score here. Jamie George in centre field. Van Poortvliet looks right, goes left to Marcus Smith. Smith flings it out to Freeman, almost intercepted by Parise, but Australia were offside. It's going to be kickable. England can go 16 up, if not more.
Andrew Brace is doing a hell of a job for England here. He's giving Australia not, happy about it, don't get me wrong, but he's been very good to England so far in this game.
Just seeing a replay of a tackle with Tupou, but doesn't seem anything on towards there. Even though Tupou's been marked man today by the officials.
We need to review this, I think, Andy.
But he is... Andrew Brace is calling for a review and speaking to Joy Neville, so let's listen into the officials. What is being reviewed here? It might be for whether Parise is trying to catch that. Ooh, right. Joy Neville reckons it's a deliberate knock-on. I think Parise is trying to catch this personally.
Of course he's trying to catch it.
Try to get another wide angle.
But there is I think we could be looking at a yellow card and maybe a penalty try here.
Well, then there's a crazy decision.
This angle, Andy.
Marcus Smith, what's your call, Chris Ashton?
You're a winger. Can you get two hands to that ball?
Not in the position he's put himself in, and to me he's clearly trying to catch the ball. We're talking about a professional international winger here. He can go for the ball in the air. Everything's in his hand, everything's in the right place to catch the ball.
Right, they're going to give a deliberate knock-on here. Not a penalty try.
Why not?
Well, we saw one in Dunedin earlier.
Be convicted by your decisions. If that's deliberate, then that should be a penalty try. But the fact is, it's like they don't want the double jeopardy, and so they give with one and take with the other. Just back yourself in your decision. It's either nothing, which I don't think it is, but if you do put yourself in that position, you do know as a winger you're running the risk. But the language surrounding it, a deliberate knock-on, that's not what it is. It's a poor description of the action of 23. But if you are then going to give us a deliberate knock-on, you have to award the penalty try, because Tommy Freeman is walking over Australia's try line there.
And the law, Ugo, is a try would probably have been scored. It doesn't have to definitely have been scored. So there was one in the Ireland-New Zealand game earlier when a New Zealand player knocked on with Gary Ringrose heading for the line, which was just a penalty try. If you're going to give a penalty, I think you've got to give a penalty try. Farrell's kicked the goal, and goodness me, if England lose from here, they are 16-0 up, and the Australians have a man in the bin.
Well, this is the perfect test in terms of how far has this team grown in the last 7 days. It's almost carbon copy to last week. Swain went off that was actually a red card. This time it's just a yellow card. They've had to make an early substitution, so Parise's come on, who's now just been yellow carded, and England in a lead. They were accused of not being able to defend a lead last week. 16-0 up after 22 minutes against 14 men. Everything is tailor-made for England to go on and put the boot down.
I think England there have made a conscious decision to take 3 just to push it 2 tries away at 16-0 from Australia. Personally, I would have loved to have seen England play that attack. They've got all the momentum here. Australia have got a man down 2. I think they would have scored a try, but they've gone safety, get 2 tries ahead and just keep building.
It's basically got to the point, and you guys are both wingers, that if you go with one hand, if you don't catch it, you're going to the sin bin.
But you've got to understand the game.
In terms of the law,
that's the point I'm trying to make. The law has to match the game. And rugby is a 4-dimensional game, and you find yourselves in compromised positions. And if you're tight as a wing and the ball's going over your head, it is almost physically impossible to get 2 hands to it. So what do? Just let it go over your head?
Yeah, I think.
But that's the law.
It seems so stark to go from intercept, try to you don't catch it and you're off for 10 minutes. It's a big old swing. Either way, England are 16-0 up, and they have an extra man for the next 8.5 minutes with Parise in the sin bin. What have Australia got? Tupou, tackled by a combination of Laws and Farrell. 10-metre line centre field. We've barely seen Australia. It's been all England. It's been a composed and convincing 23 minutes for Eddie Jones's men. Tupou now out to Lolaseo. Deep it goes to the outside centre, Paisami, who links with Rob Leota, who goes over the 10-metre line. England are getting a bit more change of the breakdown, but not this time. It's there for Tupou, who sends a little tip on, which knocked on by Neville, and England have it back in their possession.
It's a massive win once again. 6 phases for England, and Australia turn the ball over as Marcus Smith search and kick into that backfield.
He's kicked for himself, Smith, he almost got it. It's come forward off the knees of Guy Porter inside Australia's half in Wallaby possession. Valentini to play at scrum half because Nick White was on the floor. Now here's Angus Bell, the loose head prop. The turf in Brisbane so slightly cutting up. They watered it before kickoff as Phillip offloads to Valentini. Good tackle in there by Guy Porter. England have been right on point physically, right on point in defence, and Australia just can't get anything going. Jamie George this time does the tackling. White goes back to Lolaseo, who will kick, and Jack Noel is under this one. Up goes Noel, well taken by the Exeter man on the pitch where he scored a famous try for England 6 years ago, composed under the high ball there. England, you'd imagine, will set up a couple of phases, then go to the boot again. Johnny Hill sets it up, and Van Poortvliet prepares to kick, and Van Poortvliet has been excellent with his box kicking so far today.
I'm not sure why Australia aren't changing their game. Oh gosh, that was a big collision which might need a second look. That was a kick chase there from England. But as I said that, the point I'm trying to make is Australia have been running everything from their half, which is exactly what England want them to do, and I think they need to play more of a patient kicking game at the moment, which are going to be forced into doing as Nick White starts running the ball out, running from under his sticks.
Because it was a goal line dropout, and what are Australia doing? It's found its way to Karevi, who kicks, but they seem reluctant to put boot to ball on their own line, but are in the halfway line. So confusing Wallaby tactics. Karevi does clear it, but again, Chris Ashton, Freddie Stewart asking questions with his kicking game.
Yeah, great option again from Freddie at the back. He's so solid, and he's got a good long kick on him. He just kicks it long enough over the try line, just enough to cause the confusion into the Australian back three, and they're putting themselves in a world of pain the whole time. Just on Guy Porter so far and his debut, he's been solid in defence. That is what he is. He's almost a Brad Barrett style player. He'll work all day for you and he'll defend all day.
England from the line out sees some space through Smith. That's a very good kick because White's in real trouble again. He gets it away. What a take, Johnny Hill, like he's in the line out. And England are only 10 metres out. They can practically put this test match to bed here and now as Itoje drives up round the blind side. 6 metres out England. Van Poortvliet finds Ellis Genji, who's come from nowhere to within 4 metres. Good counter-ruck Australia. Van Poortvliet can't get clean ball and Australia survive.
I tell you what, that was a really clever piece of play. So it was an England line-out and Marcus Smith puts the ball in the back. Well, considering Parise has just been sent to the bin, Australia's back three had been decimated, so he found turf, he found space, which caused almighty confusion. Nick White kicks the ball about a foot off the grass. Johnny Hill catches it and launches a counter-attack. Who thought we'd ever say that? But fair play to Australia. Good counter-ruck, burst through the ruck, win the ball back and clear their lines. But every action that Australia are taking is ones out of desperation. It's very much reactive. It's not on their terms, it's not on their tempo.
Jamie George throws Itoje at the front, nicely done by the Saracens combination. 27 minutes have flown by in Brisbane. Australia 0, England 16. A Billy Vunipola try and plenty of kicks from the boot of Owen Farrell. Marcus with again kicking, that's come off the Wallaby head, and Sam Underhill's got it, and he's found Jamie George, and Tommy Freeman could have walked at him, but George didn't use him. There for Van Poortvliet. England must have numbers to the right. Marcus Smith deep to Farrell. Farrell ships it on to Jack Noel. Noel looking for the corner. The Exeter man, good tackle coming in on him, saves the day, and it was Hunter Paisami coming across on Noel. But England could be 30-odd points up here.
They're really exposing this right wing Simbin in. Tommy Freeman came a little bit earlier to try and get the kick. Jack didn't see him, so Marcus Smith put the kicks in, and in the end Jack's probably saved too much on his touchline and made the pass too long, giving him a lot to do to get in that corner, and it's a great tackle to put Jack in touch.
But great tactical awareness by England. Last week it's not as obvious when you lose in a second row, but when you lose a right winger, it's obvious where the space is, but play into the space. That's what England are doing, which is so interesting. And just a word on Jack Van Poortvliet. Starting at number 9 today in a huge test match, and for 28 minutes he has played the game. Well, every ball's been laid on a platter. Danny Kerr sat on the bench, must be thinking, where was this service last week? Because it was slow, it was a fearsome battle, he had to go digging. Van Poortvliet is having a lovely game because the big lumps in front and their accuracy at the breakdown is making the gameplay, being able to be played so much more fluidly.
Well, England gave away a free kick from the line out, so Australia have cleared to touch, but it's still an excellent platform for England as Atoje sends it down to Porter. Farrell, Smith and Jack Knowles off his wing. Again they go to the boot, again they expose Australia being a man short in the backfield. Corabetti's in trouble, can he get past a combination of Porter and Stewart? He uses all of his strength and power there, Marika Corabetti, and just about hangs on to possession. Tom Wright sets it up, but England going to the boot far more than last week, and a lot of the time with a good effect.
Well, it's attacking. There's purpose to that kicking at the minute. It's searching, they're finding grass, they're finding space. And the beauty is that those actions are then backed up by brilliant kick chases and no silly penalties. So for the last 8 minutes of this sin bin, Australia haven't been out of their half. And they've had to make so many tackles. So it's, using that rugby league analogy, it's been repeated attacking set after repeated attacking set, and all they're doing is kicking out of desperation. England, though, for all that pressure, for all that quality play, need to get some points on the board. Just as I say that, they lose the line out. However, they get another opportunity now.
Yeah, there's a kicking for kicking's sake, and there's kicking for purpose, and that's what England are doing here. They're creating chaos in the backfield for Australia, and they're just keeping Australia in their own half and gaining territory the whole time. Just need to get points from it.
They do. Australia probably won't mind if it stays at 60-0 until Isaiah Parise comes back on, because it's only been 3 points with England with the extra man. They win it in the line out, England. Lovely dart from Jamie George, well taken by Atoje. Half an hour gone, Australia 0, England 16. England have made a fantastic start in Brisbane, and they're looking still to try if they've got a penalty advantage. Australia just can't stop giving away penalties, and Van Poortvliet snipes and he's almost gone. Deep into the 22 goes the Leicester rookie. Billy Vunipola, the try scorer. Great burst from Billy, but there was some obstruction. Back will go for the penalty from the line out, and now England have to decide whether they kick for 19-0 or kick to the corner. Almost trying to put this game to bed.
Go to the corner.
5 and 6 is it?
Go to the corner. The line has been so profitable. I mean, this must be so deflating from an Australian perspective. They've been marched backwards on this slick track here in Brisbane. England scored a try through Billy Vunipola just after 3 minutes. They've taken 3 points at sticks, and now with the latest line-out drive, which has taken Australia back again, Van Poortvliet's made a break alongside Billy Vunipola. I think in the same way tactically England have been kicking strategically, they now can bank on the knowledge that their set piece, predominantly the line-out, is a real weapon for them. And just as I say, that Owen Farrell, he opts for the points, and that's not a bad decision either.
No, it's not. It's probably the right thing to do right now in this game. They've worked hard in this area of the pitch, and we've just mentioned about taking points, so I have no doubt he'll pit this over, and it's what England need right now. Just reset, go back, do it all again.
Well, Australia look shell-shocked, a very different side to the one that had such an impressive second half in Perth last weekend. But England have been slick and powerful and accurate, playing some of the best rugby they've put together in the last few years. Still early days in the game though. Australia 0, England 16, 8 minutes to go to half-time. Farrell for 19-0. He's not looked like missing today, he's not looked like missing this time. That has split the posts in half. England have a 19-point lead in Brisbane.
You're right. We spoke about it before the game, Chris, didn't we? England desperately need a result. And I said it doesn't matter about the performance, but the performance is driving the result at the moment. This isn't a 3-6-9 type of game. This is England taking total control over every facet of it.
Well, that's the point, isn't it? Because if you have a performance, the result comes. You don't often, if you're a top team, lose and play well. It's a sort of symbiotic thing, isn't it? If England play like they can, they put themselves into positions to win matches, and not only win matches, but win them well, as they are so far in this one. 19-0 to England. 14 points from Owen Farrell, Billy Vunipolas try, a Saracens effort in Queensland. As Jack Van Portfleet, who's such an assured first start, that is another perfect box, and England have won the kicking battle. Potential couple of knock-ons in there, really messy. Andrew Brace is going to call one of the knock-ons by England, so it will be an Australian scrum, an area where England have had total dominance.
Yeah, well, Tupou, he's got full awareness of what's happened the last two scrums, started free kick and then went to a full-on penalty. Australia, who haven't been able to fire off any shots, for 7 minutes to go. Paris is now back on the pitch, they're back to their full complement of 15. They've really got to start doing something now, and I would start trying to test the axis of Smith, Farrell, Porter. First test match those three have played together. What can the likes of Samu Karevi, Paisami, Korobetti, what kind of level of danger can they bring? But they've first got to start by getting a decent, stable scrum.
Just the difference Jack Van Portfleet's kicking can make when the kicks are on the money. We see Jack Noel chasing there, and he's able to get up, contest and win the ball back for England. Makes the whole momentum swing for both teams the complete opposite. Having that bit of detail and being able to make a kick 50-50 challenge makes it such a difference during the game.
5 and a bit minutes to go of this first half. Australia get to score a point. England have 19 of them.
Don't lean past the mark.
And he's had Taniela Tupou in his sights, the referee at scrum time. The big tight head's given away a free kick, he's given away a penalty, he's given away a penalty in open play. He's trying to get stuck into Ellis Genge, but so far he's been unable to get any dominance in that area. Right on halfway, bit inside the England half. Nick White prepares to feed the scrum. This one's a bit more solid, and this time it's Australia who will get the penalty. So tit for tat at scrum time.
Tight head bind, it's been called as. You can see Will Stewart just putting a huge amount of pressure just on the arm of Angus Bell, just pulling that scrum down, offering the angle then for Ellis Genge to try and whip it around, and although it looked dominant, it was done illegally. And because Australia are 19 points down, Lilicio, he is going to try and take as many yards off as he can. That's actually a far better kick, giving Australia a platform in the 22. It's a big moment. I know there's just over a half to go in this, but when you're 19 points down and barely fired off a shot, we had that rallying call to make this feel intimidating for England. It's felt nothing but. So Australia really now got to start showing their teeth.
And they've got a line out 20 metres out. I dare say this is the first time they've been in England's 22, actually.
I think it is, Jones. I think you're right. They've only got 4 minutes left this half. They've got to take something away from it.
They win the line out. White finds Bell. He's a good carrier from loose head, is Angus Bell. They've got an advantage, Australia. Paisami's in a wide channel. He bundles through a few England defenders, and they're only 10 metres out, the men in gold. White now, Angus Bell. Bell's almost up to the line. He might score here, the loose head prop. He is just short. Despairing English defence. Bodies on the wrong side. Australia will score with a bit of composure. Up to the line they go, over the line they go. They've hit right back, Australia, and it's Tupou, who's had a tough first half, but that's what he can do. Australia on the board, game on.
Yeah, great finish from Tupou. That's where he's known for the Tongan Thor. He's a powerful kid. I think it was Sam Underhill that gave the penalty away, and that just gives you confidence as a team. As soon as you see that arm go out, you're like, no fear, let's play. We can play where we want and score, and that's what Australia do. Great carries from them, but just unnecessary from Sam Underhill to give the penalty away.
Absolutely, that I think there's a couple of things. You mentioned it just before the line out. Australia barely been in England's 22, and their first chance, the come way of points. And so for England, the message has got to be discipline. It has been very good so far this first half, but the minute this Australia team can generate any centre quick ball, we've just had a reminder of how good they can be, because they barely had any possession, have they, for 37 minutes?
How do you stop Tupou that close to the line?
Shotgun.
How do you stop him?
You're the pro rugby player, actually, tell us.
You have to put four players against him. Especially he's got someone on his back carrying him over. There's no answer to it.
He's trying to tackle a skip. The size of the man.
With an electric skip. Well, Farrell does not shirk a challenge, but he couldn't deal with the sheer mass of the Australian tight head. Really good half of rugby this. We were lamenting the first half in Perth. This time last week with kind of limped to 6-all at half-time, exploded into light in the second half. This is a proper half of rugby. Dominated by England, but Australia on the board. Lolaseo nicely kicked. He has this little draw right to left. Lolaseo. And the Australians in the crowd aren't on their feet, but they're certainly a little bit happier with life. They've got something to show for this first half, which has been overwhelmingly dominated by the men in white. Australia 7, England 19 as we edge towards the break.
So important they get this restart right. At the minute, Owen Farrell's been kicking quite a lot to compete, going from left to right. Jack Noel, the likes of Courtney Laws, trying to get up and compete for this. Australia need to get out of their half. It was the same last week, territory game. Just looking at the stats at the moment. Last week, England kicked the ball 18 times, and they had already kicked the ball 9 times in the opening 20 minutes. The kick-in is such an important thing, as well as territory. And Australia need to start learning some of England's lessons.
Well, Jamie George said on the pod last week that England need to go back to basics. They have gone back to basics. They played territory.
Maro Toja's in a bit
tight,
of trouble there. I have never seen him handled like that, but that is a big collision. And, I mean, sad scenes, horrible scenes, and we've seen some big collisions so far in the first test, New Zealand against Ireland, but this... And I'm not trying to put a medical hat on, but just going by my eyes, Maro Toja won't be taking any more part in this game.
He flew up, didn't he, Atoje, to make the tackle on Paisami. We're seeing a replay, and I think it's his head on Paisami's arm or shoulder, so there's no kind of foul play here. It's kind of a rugby incident.
There's no foul play in that, Andy.
The power from Paisami there on Maro.
We've only seen it twice. One in the build-up to Tupou's try, where he just cut inside and stepped through and kicked out of a couple of tackles. That last challenge has been checked there by Joy Neville. But Maro Toja, his work rate, his work ethic is unbelievable. And then, actually, no one expects this to happen. Maro Toja's an 80-minute man. At the start of the week, England had a 6-2 bench, and unfortunately for Jack Willis, he's pulled out, so they've gone to a 5-3 bench with Will Joseph coming in for Jack Willis. So when we look at replacements now, perhaps an Ollie Chesham, or does Courtney Laws go into the second row and Lewis Ludlam come into the back row, which might look a little bit more obvious, especially as the time's on 39 minutes, but Eddie Jones is going to have to rejiggle his team in the same way Australia had to do just after 4 minutes.
And you're bang on, Ugo, because we just seldom see Maro Toja ever go off injured. You won titles with him at Saracens. He's always there at the end, isn't he?
I think he's missed, since Eddie Jones has come in, I think he's missed 4 test matches.
Wow.
And he now has over 50. He is your banker player, energy, output, work rate, influence. He is that person.
He'll probably be calling the line out too, won't he, today? So that might impact the decision of who Eddie brings on. Will Johnny Hill take that role on? Because Ollie's obviously on the bench. He won't have had any input on that during the week. But Ollie Chesham is we've seen him come on now. He's very much a Maro Itoje style player. He'll work hard, he'll run for you, and he won't get much wrong.
So we will wait to see if it's a permanent removal for Itoje. He's up and about, he's walking off. Whether it'll be an HIA or permanent removal, you saw the signs, Ugo, to suggest it would be permanent. So we'll wait to see after half-time whether Itoje does emerge, but you'd think probably not.
I think, and like I said, it's difficult to comment on because I don't have a medical background. But if we're to lead by what we saw and the reaction of Andrew Brace, the reason why he blew his whistle is because he saw something that looked like someone had potential concussions or signs of concussion. So we haven't had any confirmation at this point yet, but hopefully we'll be able to update you over half-time.
You don't stop the game for cramp, do you? But you do for when a player reacts
I've
like
tried
that. And hasn't
more than once as well.
Without much success.
After 6 minutes.
Well, we wish Maro Itoje well. He certainly was good to see him walking off the pitch unaided. Australia attack now, and they put the little grubber through. 30 seconds left of this first half, as Stewart mops up in the backfield like a goalie, isn't he, or a sweeper in hockey. Freddie Stewart, such a reliable last line of defence. Penalty against Australia.
Silly penalty.
They were pushing the envelope of the breakdown, and Andrew Brace has got them. And so England can end the half, Ugo Monye, in Australian territory.
Yeah, it's just poor from Tom Wright. You can see he's counter-attacking on Owen Farrell. That's absolutely fine. But, you know, to carry on with your goalkeeper, you could not touch the number 9. They're a protected species at the back of the ruck. So Tom Wright, over-exuberance, has allowed Owen Farrell to relieve that pressure valve and send this...
Oh, he's missed touch. I can see why he's gone for broke. Brilliantly done from the Australian cover to kick it out, and that is half-time. Australia 7, England 19. Owen Farrell could have been a line out, 5 metres out for England, but they do go in with just this 12-point lead, because Chris Ashton, they have been so dominant, England. A 12-point lead is the least they would have wanted at half-time, given how well they've played.
Yeah, that is as good as a half I've seen for England for, 18 months? 2 years nearly? They've been near perfect. But what is going to happen is Australia, as they show, they're going to get chances and they're going to come back into this game. We've had the shot now of Maro Itoje going off, so we need to react. We need to just recoup now at half-time and start the second half just as we did the first of this game.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more from Chris Ashton. That was brilliant. That was comprehensive. That was the level of reaction you expect to see in what is a series decider. The only thing I would say, just to put in the negative box, not quite a negative box, is just be aware. Australia, very little chance, very little possession, and with it, they created a very, very good try. So expect to see more of that in the second half.
Well, the stats guru Russ Petty has pointed out this is England's second biggest half-time lead against Australia ever. It's 12 points. It's 19 points to 7. It could have been more. England have been excellent. They're halfway to level in the series, Gigi.
What a half. Thank you very much to Chris Jones, Chris Ashton and Ugo Monye, and we'll be back for the second half. It's the second test in Australia against England in Brisbane, and during half-time we're going to be talking rugby league. We're going to be talking tennis from our base here at Wimbledon, building up to the ladies singles final at 2 o'clock, Onjibur against Alina Rybakina. So plenty to come. 5 Live Sports actually with you through until 11:30 this evening, but now the time at exactly 12 o'clock. It is midday on Saturday. Let's get some news for you with Lisa McCormick.
Listen on BBC Sounds. This is BBC Radio 5 Live.
The race for the Conservative leadership is gathering pace, with more MPs expected to launch their campaigns this weekend. The former Equalities Minister, Kemi Badenoch, has confirmed that she's running. Tom Tugendhat, Attorney General Suella Braverman and the former Chancellor Rishi Sunak are all standing. The Conservative MP and Leader of the Commons, Mark Spencer, told 5 Live he's backing Rishi Sunak.
Rishi was the Chancellor of the Exchequer that took 5 pence, that's £5 billion off the cost of fuel. He was the Chancellor that this week actually just kicked in the reduction in national insurance. That's a huge tax cut for the nation. But he was also the man that stepped in during COVID and created the furlough scheme. That literally saved millions of jobs and millions of businesses up and down the country.
The Ministry of Defence has begun a programme to train up to 10,000 Ukrainian soldiers in the UK. The new recruits come from a variety of civilian backgrounds and don't have any military training. New figures released by the NHS show that 500,000 more adults in England are taking antidepressants since last year. It's the 6th year in a row there's been an increase in both the number of patients and prescriptions. Thousands of protesters in the Sri Lankan capital Colombo have stormed the official presidential residence and nearby government buildings. It's the latest unrest to be sparked by Sri Lanka's worst economic crisis in decades. And Twitter says it's planning to sue Elon Musk after he pulled out of a $44 billion sale of the company. He says he hasn't received the data that he asked for about the number of spam accounts on the social media platform.
The best live sports. The Women's Euros. Hear live commentary of all the big games throughout the tournament.
Has the opening goal of Euro 2022.
Monday evening at 5. Austria v Northern Ireland.
Northern Ireland have a goal early in the second half.
At 8. England v Norway.
We want more from each other. We expect more. We expect better still.
Euro 2022.
Listen on 5 Live or BBC Sounds via your smart speaker. Wimbledon 2022 with Gigi Salmon on BBC Radio 5 Live.
Welcome back to 5 Live Sport. What a day we have for you today, right through until 11:30 this evening. The ladies' singles final from Wimbledon, a Super League top 2 clash. That's from Magic Weekend. 2 favourites from the Euros. They meet this evening when Netherlands face Sweden, and Derek Chisora's fight with Kubrat Pulev. That is from the O2 Arena. But here at Wimbledon, the sun is desperately trying to fight through these clouds. I think it's starting to win the battle. It's warming up. There is a breeze, which is nice when the sun is out. We remain on the broadcast centre roof, which is starting to fill up. I saw Chris Evert a short while ago as people start to build up and do their previews, because we are now just, a couple of hours away from Ons Jabeur against Elena Rybakina, taking to centre court in the ladies' singles final. And here for you is the legendary Billie Jean King on today's final.
Well, it's so exciting. It depends on how long they've been dreaming about this, maybe since childhood. I know I had. And you really have to get your nerves under control if you're going to do well. You've got to really get calm and really make an effort to not go too fast in anything you do, except when you're on the court, obviously. But I know in the morning when I was playing my first final, I just absolutely slowed down. When I first woke up, I just said, slow down, because you start going faster and you don't even know it. Like even if you're brushing your teeth or you're eating or you go fast. And so what I did is I purposely just slowed down. And I try to do that every day, but if it's a final day like Wimbledon, man, I really make an effort to try to stay in the now and in the present. And that's how you're in the zone in tennis, is when you just take one ball at a time.
2 very interesting finalists in the women's singles. Ons Jabeur, how impressed have you been with her style of tennis over these 2 weeks?
Well, I've been watching her for quite a while. And what I loved about her is that she can drop shot really well. She's got great touch. I think Jabeur also has improved her serve. She's hitting better off the ground than she was. She's been hitting her forehand more consistently. That's what I watch for, does that break down or does it stay in there? And also not get lulled by the other player. Rybakina won't let her do that, though, because she's going to be more aggressive going to net, big serves. And the last time we had 2 people that were new to the final like this is 1962. And I know exactly who was there because I was there watching. It was Karen Hance, my doubles partner, and Vera Sokova. That's a long time, though, 62 to now.
Jabeur is a trailblazer for Arab and African women. It has taken her a couple of years to be comfortable with that idea of being a leader, but how proud are you of the likes of Jabeur, Coco Gauff, or others who are taking on your role of being actively involved in social change these days?
Well, I'm always thrilled when they use tennis as a platform for social change or whatever is important to them, but I have talked to Jabeur, and Ons always talks about how important Tunisia and the continent of Africa is to her. She's Arab. We've never had an Arab champion, man or woman. So there's a lot on the line, but also that can also help you. And if you use it in a positive way, it can help you win. So you do continue to have this platform, but she's basically calling herself, I think, the Minister of Happiness. And so I think that's so cute. But I just love the fact that she's using tennis and having this platform and making a difference. I know she's very indebted to the ITF because when she was young, she didn't have enough money or coaching, and the ITF stepped up, gave money, gave her coaching. So she always tells that story about how she's very grateful. The great thing about her, when you listen to her, she doesn't talk about herself very much. And that's a good sign of someone who's thoughtful and thinks about others. Most players usually only talk about themselves.
That is the legend Billie Jean King in conversation with Karthi Nanasigra. I'm delighted to be joined on the roof, and I appreciate the fact he hasn't sat down, or I'd have been catapulted off it. A member of these benches, David, they worry me. David Law, a member of the BBC tennis team.
So. Yeah, that was my thinking.
Yeah, so thank you for standing up. Really interesting listening to Billie Jean King. I believe this is a fascinating final, maybe one we wouldn't have predicted, but the first thing I took from Billie Jean King was, how do you feel? What do you do that morning of your first Grand Slam final? And she said, slow down, even brushing your teeth, just slow down.
Yeah, and you've no idea, I think, as a player, until you're in that position, exactly how you will handle it. You may have all the best advice in the world, but I do know that Billie Jean King kind of is available to talk to any of these players anytime they want, really, and she's so giving in that way, and some of the players are very happy to have that advice, and I know Ons Jabeur is one of them, and she has been walking around thinking 1 point at a time all the time, this route through to where she is now in the final, and that's how she's handled it, and I think she's taken the guidance of Billie Jean King in that way. It sounds so simple, but actually that's probably really hard to do. Elena Rybakina, she has suddenly come of age on the grass here. She's been potentially somebody who could have done this for years, 3 or 4 years, and the pandemic stopped her progress, but this surface just seems so perfect for her, and she's been brilliant. I mean, it could be quite a final.
Because a lot of the talk is weighted to Jabeur. The character is what she's doing as a trailblazer, the fact she's the world number 2 and the 3rd seed. But Rybakina, people say, oh, well, she's a 23rd seed, but she's been as high as number 12. You talked about that, that start to 2020 was phenomenal. And she has this game. It's a beautiful game to watch. And when it works, it's very difficult to counter.
It can overwhelm.
Yeah.
I think we've seen that. She beat Bianca Andreescu on the way to this point, who won the US Open a few years ago, and who also likes to use the sort of variety that Ons Jabeur uses. Well, Rybakina just shut that down by hitting the ball a million miles an hour all the time, and it's very difficult to play a stylish mixture of variety when that's coming at you, I would imagine. So lovely contrast in styles between these two players today. They look very different in terms of physical stature. Elena Rybakina is 6 foot tall, Ons Jabeur is not, but she is somebody who just has a box of tricks, and it's, I think, for just fans watching, it's going to be a great sight to see these two try to win the title in different ways.
David Law, thank you very much. And I'm being told that you can watch the match, but you can listen to our commentary. That's via the BBC Sport website and app and iPlay. And I'm sure you can do that for the men's final tomorrow. I'm just assuming, but I'm sure you can. So you can watch it, but you can listen to our commentary on it. That'll be from 1:30 today. So there is so much going on. And a reminder, we also got commentary from the opening day of Magic Weekend, part of a bumper day of action here on 5 Live Sport. We'll be bringing you Super League champions St Helens against Wigan. Now that's live at 4:45, and I'm very happy to say that correspondent Dave Woods is already at St James's Park. David, it's lovely to have you with us. Now, this is, I believe, the 15th edition of Magic Weekend, and when you look at the table and you take into consideration all of the on-field permutations, this is going to be a fascinating weekend.
It is, Gigi. There's a very Wimbledon feel here, I have to say, as well, because the sun is glorious. The pitch looks like a lawn on which a game of tennis could be breaking out at any moment, but it is the start of the annual jamboree, as you say. This is the Rugby League tribes from the various teams all travel up to Newcastle, so there'll be a wonderful celebratory atmosphere in the city over the next couple of days, and certainly tonight. All the fans sit together within the stadium. That's something that Rugby League's very proud of. And in those 15 that we've had or about to have, some we've seen some fantastic matchups, some we're not quite sure. This year the matchups are fantastic, as you say, because we've got derby games in there, we've got matches that really matter at this stage of the season, because we're entering the final stage of the season. So every game we watch over the next couple of days, the 6 matches played here, will have an awful lot riding on them.
If we focus on our commentary game, they don't come much bigger, and it's a match that's been spoken of as having some extra spice to it.
Yes, St Helens against Wigan. I was mentioning a little earlier on 5 Live, the original derby. The Earl of Derby gave his name to the horse race, and also to this game. History buffs can go and have a look at that online somewhere, I'm sure. But it remains one of the most intense games in the Rugby League calendar. Hull and Hull Kingston Rovers tomorrow will argue that theirs is more intense, and it is a one-city game, that one, so perhaps they have an argument. But Saints against Wigan, and they are first and second in Super League at the moment, so that adds even more to it. If Wigan win, they go joint top with St Helens. If Saints win, they open up a 4-point buffer over their local rivals. So that is one that all the neutrals, not just the Wigan and Saints fans, I should imagine all the neutrals will want to come in and watch today as well.
So that's the top of the table. If we look at our opener, the weekend opener, that's at the other end of the table with Toulouse. Well, it looks like from looking at the table, they're in danger of being cast adrift if they don't start picking up some points.
Well, at the start of the season, the first few games, we were actually wondering whether Toulouse were going to win a game. But they have actually started putting some wins together, not the least of them. The first win of the season was against the league leaders, St Helens. So that shows they've got something about them. But Wakefield are 4 points above them. And as we said earlier, the fact that we are now coming towards this business end of the season, if Toulouse can narrow that gap today by beating Wakefield to just 2 points, then suddenly the pressure is on. Wakefield have had a very strange season. They've not been convincing. They've looked awful at times, but then again, they too have looked very good at times. So you're not quite sure which Wakefield you're going to get, but there's going to be a lot of pressure on this game today. And if Toulouse, who got a win last week against Hull Kingston Rovers, if they can back it up today against Wakefield, then they're going to put Trinity under an awful lot of pressure. So an awful lot riding on that game, certainly. One team goes down, one team is relegated. At the moment, you'd say it's going to be one of those two.
Yeah, you can follow that on the BBC Sport website. And in terms of Newcastle, you painted that wonderful picture of the sun shining and the pitch looking beautiful. This is the host city. It's a big deal for the sport. How are they embracing it?
Oh yeah, they always embrace it. I think the city loves rugby league fans coming up here because they do like a drink or two, and they tend to behave themselves. So I think the city does embrace. But of course, there's an extra special Newcastle flavour to the rugby league season this year because the Rugby League World Cup. 3 tournaments, men's, women's, wheelchair, all given the same level, all the competitors getting the same prize money, the same amounts for playing in the games, and it all starts right here in this stadium on October the 15th, England's men against Samoa, which gets that and we're expecting a full house for that. Again, big rugby league weekend up here. There's a game down at the Falcon Stadium as well on the Sunday too. So that's going to be terrific. It's going to be a full. If it's as warm as it is today on October the 15th, we'd all be very happy.
Oh my word, I think that might be slightly miraculous, Dave, but thank you very much. Enjoy your weekend of rugby, and don't forget our commentary, St Helens Wigan Warriors. That's at 4:45 here on 5 Live. From League to Union to Brisbane, Australia, England with this 19-7 lead at half-time. Second half about to get underway, so it's back to your commentary team of Ugo Monye, Chris Ashton and Chris Jones.
Thank you, Gigi. It has just got going in the second half in Brisbane. England, as you say, leading by 19 points to 7 after a fantastic first half, first 30 especially. The try from Tupou towards the end of the first period, just giving Australia a bit of life. But England halfway towards squaring the series. Who is going to strike first in this second half? Good tackle, Jack Van Poortvliet on Corabetti. And Van Poortvliet, for a young guy, has had a fantastic first start in an England shirt. Karevi chips. Where's this going to end up? It's going to end up in the hands of...
there's a bad injury.
Perissi and Isaiah.
Who's just come on.
Perissi, who, well, he's had a turbulent game because he came on, didn't he, Ugo, for Jordan Petaia. Then he got sin-binned.
Unfortunately, I think, mate, this looks like an ACL.
Oh, well, he's got caught in the turf.
Doesn't it, Chris?
And he's thrown the ball away. I mean, if you wanted to be incredibly harsh, by throwing the ball away, he may have conceded a penalty. But far more important is this injury to Perissi. And
they have had some almighty rotten luck. Like, every injury is bad luck. But 4 minutes into this game, Tommy Banks breaking his arm in the first half of last game. You're getting substitutes coming on and getting injured within a minute of the second half. The amount of reshuffling. Coaches earn plenty of money for being organised in the week and putting together a framework. But Dave Rennie, in the last test and a half, has had to put his thinking caps on, enter into the matrix, reshuffle, galvanise, and all whilst doing that, knowing that his team are 12 points behind at the moment.
He looks uncomfortable there on the floor. Not great viewing. Will come James O'Connor now. We most likely he's the only back that's left.
Did you cross paths with O'Connor in Toulon or in Sale?
At Sale.
Yeah.
Great player. Just really natural rugby player. Always one of those that's got plenty of time on his hands. I actually really enjoyed playing with him. He's an easy player for me to work off and find my way. He's just a natural ball player. So it'd be interesting to see whether he goes at 10 or whether he'll sit back at 15.
So more reshuffling as Ugo Monye and Chris Ashton are talking about more reshuffling for the Wallabies, who last week lost player upon player. This week, Pataya off, his replacement Percy off. And that looks a serious injury. That's a bad one. You called it straight away, Ugo, as an ACL or something as serious as that. So Australia having to empty their bench. We only played 50-odd seconds of this second half, still 19-7 England.
Yeah, I think when you see players go down in a heap like that, when there is no contact with the opposition, often that's the consequence of something just being fully ruptured. I mean, there'll be assessments and scans, and you can imagine the level of treatment as the crowd applauds James O'Connor as he comes onto the pitch. I think he's probably going to slot in.
He could go anywhere. 15, winger, 10. He's a very versatile player. Centre. We don't know. We'll have to see where he lines up here, but he's behind no at the minute. So
but do you know what I think?
You just saw him point to himself, went full-back, and pointed to someone else said wing, so he's going to full-back.
I think he's such a good contributor to this team, because someone like Nulasia, who is a young fly half, he has got an experienced outlet at the back. He's got Karevi, he's got plenty of quality players around him, but being able to stand up, look up, and just pass on that responsibility, because I don't think that Australia so far have got the balance of play right. England have kicked a lot. Australia have run everything, and that has often got them into trouble.
Well, James O'Connor has been around forever. He debuted for the Wallabies in 2008.
Still at school.
When he was, he went on tour, didn't he, as a teenager. First cap for Australia as an 18-year-old. He's 31 now, and he's playing the whole of the second half. Poor Isaiah Parise's gone off and he won't return, and he could be out for a while, so that's sad to see. Australia 7, England 19. England scrum. It's been a bit tit for tat, the scrum. Billy Vunipola goes blind. Big carry, Billy Vunipola. He's having one of his best games in England shirt in a long, long time, Billy Vunipola. And he's taken play to about 30 metres out. Will Stewart on the carry. 22 line. Good bust from Will Stewart. Can England strike first in the second half? Jamie George, the willing ball carrier at first receiver. They've got a penalty advantage. The Wallabies offside. Van Poorvliet round the fringe. Almost gets away. Well shackled eventually by Phillip, but it's there for Johnny Hill, who finds Courtney Laws, who dummies. And thunders into 2-3 men in gold. On the 22. Bang in centre field. Marcus Smith is going to go cross field. No, he kicks for himself, or sort of a bit of a grubber, but doesn't matter too much that it was kicked away, because it will be a penalty to England, and you'd imagine the way they've been building the scoreboard, they will go for goal again.
Yeah, it's a poor penalty for Australia to be given away, but some good, slick, fast phases that England have been able to get. We thought it was so clunky last week, it wasn't cohesive, but Billy Vunipola off this scrum does so well. Of course, that's a physical mismatch, him up against Nick White, and he gets straight over the gain line. Australia, because I think England's forward pack have been way more physical, they're slightly jumping defence now. So England caught them offside, and you look at some of their big contributors, especially in attack for Australia. Rob Leota, who's at number 6, one carry, he's made 12 tackles. So they're just not able to impose themselves, they're having to absorb so much.
I'm really enjoying watching Jack Van Poortvliet play. He's taking, if there's half a chance in front of him, he has no hesitation about taking it. He's got all these passes away crisp. He's looking like a proper test match player so far today.
And they've got the 85 cap man, Danny Kerr. Rugby Union Weekly's Danny Kerr first and foremost. He is on the bench, ready to come on and see this one out as and when. Australia 7, England 19. Farrell for 22-7 to take the gap to a whopping 15 points, which away from home in Brisbane, practically unheard of. It's just the left of the post. He has not looked like missing tonight. It's been cool, composed and accurate from Farrell. He slams that one through as well. Australia 7, England 22. England with the first points of this second half.
Well, I mean, it's complete control at this point, isn't it? But just a couple of silly penalties here and there, but the emphasis is really on Australia to come out and play. But it's finding the areas in which they need to play. I think they need to go territory first, then play. At the moment, they're trying to play out of their halves, but at times with this England defence, which has been fuelled by anger of the last week, Australia have been running themselves into trouble.
Well, England don't claim the kickoff that has been knocked on by Corabetti, so a potential issue for England is averted thanks to Marika Corabetti knocking it on, and England have it through Ellis Genge, who drives on.
Got to learn the lesson from last week. It was Corabetti and his kick chase which got them back into the game. One that England got away, but it just goes to show that for all of the dominance, 15 points on the board, you cannot take your eyes off it. It's a brilliant restart, isn't it? There from Nick White, Corabetti, fierce in his chase, and no one claims it. Ollie Chesham's looking around, Jack Knowles looking around, but they get away with that scrum ball for England.
So we'll be in England's scrum. And when does Eddie Jones start to think about his replacements? The starters have done so well, but he's got the likes of Luke Cowan-Dickey, a British and Irish Lion, so too Mako Vunipola. Ollie Chesham is on for Maro Itoje, who we don't think is going to return after taking a heavy collision. Lewis Ludlam was industrious off the bench in Perth. Danny Care's got all that experience. Henry Arundel scorched up Perth last weekend, scoring that fabulous try. And then Will Joseph, a late addition to the bench with Jack Willis ruled out. But it's England with the scrum, and that's going forward. They're going to penalty Australia. I thought that was going to be an England penalty because England were motoring forward, but Andrew Brace has really, you know, every time one team has gone forward at the scrum, he's given the penalty the other way. So he's looking really hard at the technique of the front rows rather than just actually the momentum the team is getting from the scrum. Well,
I was just watching the reaction of the England front row, and they are gobsmacked that they didn't get a result there out of that one. It's a mess, if we're honest, about the scrum so far in this game. I feel like Andrew Brace is just not getting a grip of it at all.
Yes, Will Stewart penalised there. Perfect position now. I mean, they got the penalty on the 22 and they've actually only been able to take 13 metres off it.
They've done this all series. I don't get it. If you're the Australia kicking coach, I think Dave Reddy might have a word or two. They could have put that in the corner, but they haven't. They've gone to 10 metres. They have won the line out though. Parecki has it. Karevi's in there. Corabetti's in there. And Australia are only 6 metres out. England bodies are on the floor. Parecki peels away. 5 metres out, the Wallabies. Slightly messy ball, but Karevi finds Valentini. Good tackling, Sam Underhill. That's what he does. 6 minutes into this second half. 22-7 to England. But Australia are pressing hard in the English 22. Tupou, the try scorer, drove on. Now there's Michael Hooper, the captain. Flipped out to the Wallaby forwards. 4 metres out now. 15 metres in from the left touchline. Working their way into centre field. They've got great ball runners out wide, Australia, if they can use it. Johnny Hill's making the tackling. To within 3 metres the Wallabies go. England with this 15-point lead. Tupou flips it on. Again the forwards drive. Again England repel them with good defence. Billy Vunipola prominent. Tupou and Hooper, what a combination those two are. Tupou throws the dummy, Hooper latches behind him and forces him to about 4 metres from the England try line. Next to the left upright now, the Wallabies couldn't be much closer, could they? White now goes to the right, to Lolaseo, inside to Hunter Paisami, who's so hard to stop. Under the crossbar, advantage to the Wallabies. This is when they'll look to strike. White goes wide to Tupou, who bundles past Marcus Smith, and he is on the try line. He's a matter of inches short. The Wallabies surely have numbers to the left. If they show some composure, what a boost it would be to England if they can keep them out. White to Lolaseo, O'Connor's there. Oh, good try, Australia. Karevi walks it in, and we are very much game on now.
That was patient. Absolute patient brilliance from Australia. It's the second time they've been into England's 22. Both times they've come away with tries. And where did it all start from? A poor penalty from England. Tupou, Marcus Smith, and then what an exceptional challenge that was from Guy Porto, who throws his body in the way of it. But Australia keep hold of the ball. England run out of numbers, and it's the vice-captain Samu Karevi that goes over. Territory and patience is ruling today.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest highlight I'll take away from that is the patience they showed. They were calm, they took their time, they looked so settled on England's. Like sometimes teams rush and want to score straight away. They were willing to just go phase after phase, and actually England had 5 defenders on this short side and they all chased in. I don't know why, but they had enough men to deal with it.
Samu Karevi, the try scorer. Australia to within 10. Oh, what a fascinating 30 minutes we've got coming up on 5 Live.
Chris, it was England's scrum, 20 metres out. The set-piece battle, and at the moment, these small moments are counting for big moments, aren't they?
Is that at a time of scrum, though, like that? Let's just get the ball out and get it away.
100%.
We don't have to win penalty after penalty after penalty.
It could cost them 7 points, just one poor exit.
So Lolaseo to take the gap from 10 to 8 as we edge towards the 50-minute mark. Packed out stadium in Queensland. Australia have got their second try. England have got their one from Billy Vunipola. The boot of Owen Farrell has taken them well clear. But that is just the score Australia need. And that's the kick they need as well. Lolaseo's looked composed this series. And he splits the post. 22-14 England.
So we're getting scoreboard pressure at the moment. Australia coming back into the game. I think the next 5-10 minutes are about mental pressure. If Australia get another score, whether that be a 3 or a 5 or a 7, this is going to be a real challenge for this England side, especially as they go into that final quarter where they haven't been able to score as many points as what they certainly would have wanted to.
Farrell kicks off. Taken by Paisami, who's looked so dangerous when he's had the ball in attack. Haven't probably seen enough of him from an Australian supporter's point of view. We've seen plenty of Billy Vunipola from an England supporter's perspective. He crashes into the Wallaby defence. Will Stewart's having a decent series on the tight head for England, and he burrows on a few metres. Quick ball, Van Porfy snaps it away to Smith, who passes to Laws, and Courtney Laws makes a carry and then he loses it, does Laws. Will Australia look to counter-attack? They've got the advantage. Lolaseo out to O'Connor. There are forwards there for England. One of them was George. They maybe could have fancied a counter-attack, but a clearance kick goes into the grateful hands of Freddie Stewart. Haven't seen too much of Tommy Freeman, have we, on this left wing? Here's Guy Porter. That's a solid carry, but he's lost it. Australia just winning a few of these collisions now. And they kick. Stewart was out of position because he was carrying the ball before. So Jack Knowles in the backfield, and he will clear to touch. Slightly gets under it, or is that a good kick from Knoll? Not too bad. Line out on halfway to Australia.
Yeah, it's a win for Australia, isn't it? And there has been a bit of a shift as we see the potential another injury for Australia. That looks to be, just trying to figure out who that is. It's Scott Seo. Oh gosh.
Well, Seo has just come on for Angus Bell. He'd been on a matter of seconds, and he gets his head on the wrong side and clatters into. Is that Sam Underhill's knee?
Yeah, shoulder. I mean, he's holding. Oh, he's going off.
So Angus Bell would barely have sat on the pine, and then he's back up again.
I hope he's had some Lucozade.
It's a more shoulder. Well, if it's an HIA, then Seo can get checked out and come back on. But if it's a permanent shoulder injury, then Bell is basically going to have to go 80, isn't he?
Well, he's going to have to go 80, and then you think of who's going to come on against him. Angus Bell, we've got Joe Hayes to come on, fully charged after winning the Premiership final just a couple of weeks ago. It's very rare we see front row forwards go through 80 minutes, but Angus Bell might just have to do that.
Parecki throws into the line-out, one by Australia. Off the top it goes to White. Hooper's at first receiver. He flips it on to Valentini. Nice drill from Australia. White puts some pace on the ball and switches nicely with Rob Leota. That was good from Australia as they go up to the 10-metre line. They've got the penalty. England infringe, and momentum is just switching and shifting towards the Wallabies here, Ashley.
I think if there's ever a time, when England were at the best, they made changes at this point in the game. The team, they look tired. They put a lot into this game so far. That's what the bench is there for. Let's see, we've got experienced players here on the bench. Get them on.
Such a poor penalty. And it's all, for me, a consequence of Australia winning quick ball. Really good carry from Leota. Valentini's down at the moment, just getting checked out. Hopefully it's nothing more than him just catching his breath. But then, off the back of that, because of that speed of ball, it made it really tough for Underhill, and he just got his hands caught in the cookie jar and given Australia another opportunity to go to line-out. Last time they were in the 22 and had a line-out, came away with 7 points.
Australia 14, England 22. England, fantastic first half, 19-7 up. That became 22-7, but the Karevi try has put this one back in the balance. We're seeing Leota getting a bit of treatment. I mean, the Wallabies have had absolutely no luck when it's come to injuries. Scott Seo's come on for Angus Bell. He's gone straight off injured. Jordan Petaia injured. Isaiah Parise injured. England have lost Maro Itoje, so plenty of collateral damage in Brisbane for both these sides.
All major injuries as well. We're talking broken arms, potential ACLs, and I called that early, and of course that's not confirmed. Quay Cooper out for the series. Talk about quality players in big positions. Swain gone, second row leader, caller. That was self-inflicted, but that's 4 players out the spine of their team.
Australia win it. Ballatini, Hooper peels away. Oh, Smith may have knocked that on.
Could be a yellow.
And Smith could get a yellow here.
That's for a line break.
They're exactly what they're saying. The Australians feel that Smith has worked a nice pattern. Australia off the line now. Smith came out defence. It definitely hit his hand. And if Parise gets a yellow if he's in the first half, you feel Smith's got to go to the bin here as well.
This will be a yellow. He's gone for it one-handed, denied a potential line break. For me, this is an easier call.
Seeing a replay now, Angus Bell, and I don't think Smith's in a position to catch that.
It's worse, if anything. His hand's not as in a good position to catch the ball. He's knocking it down. He's just got himself in no man's land there, Marcus. And we've seen a yellow, and off he goes.
Yellow card, Marcus Smith. Right. England were excellent for 30 minutes. But we've spoken loads in the past 3 years, maybe even 5, about what they're like when the pressure comes on. Ugo Monya's tapping his head. What are they like when mental pressure is being applied? Now, they've got Australia coming back into this game, and how? They've scored the try from Karevi. Smith's in the sin bin. Lolosei will kick this with his eyes shut. It's going to go to a 5-point game with England down to 14.
Well, it's just compounding errors. It's a poor error from Sam Underhill on the pitch, followed up by a poor intercept, instinctive hand at the ball. That's now leading to scoreboard pressure. A game which was very comfortable. I thought England were near perfect in that first half. Tactically, very disciplined right across the board. We're now, if this goes over, a 5-point game with 27 minutes to go, England down to 14 men. Narrative, the mood, the energy, the Brisbane fans who we haven't basically heard have now found a voice.
Yeah, we've heard more of Swing Low, haven't we, than Advance Australia Fair or any kind of Australia chant. Lolosei kicks it. Australia 17, England 22. Chris Ashton, if you're on that pitch as you were so many times for England, what are the messages going around? Is this where the leaders, the experience really needs to tell?
You got to find momentum again to shift it back in your way, but that's so hard when you're tired. And why are we not changing the front row now? Why are we not bringing experience on? Why are we not bringing Danny Kerr on now? Jack's had a great game. Don't put him in this situation yet. Bring Danny Kerr on, let him control the game, as he has done so many times for England.
Well, the good thing that England definitely have is another fly half to play in Marcus Smith's place. They've got Owen Farrell, who's got 96 caps for his country, a load for the Lions as well, and he will switch to 10, and England will be able to reshuffle. And just feels like Chris Ashton has got a hotline to Eddie Jones. On comes Mako Vunipola, and I think Luke Cowan-Dickey, has he come on as well? He has. So Cowan-Dickey on, Mako Vunipola on, Corabetti takes the restart. Great tackle, Sam Underhill. That's what he does. What a hit. Textbook and low. It looks like he might have hurt himself as well, though, as Australia attack Lolosei. O'Connor's up in the line. Wide to Karevi. Karevi's almost up to the halfway line. Good attack from the men in gold. Over on the far touchline, just short of halfway. They're trying to go coast to coast here, the Wallabies. Lolosei out to Paisami. He could back himself against Laws and Chesham, and he does. Good tackle, Ollie Chesham, just about. Over the halfway line go Australia, who are cooking with gas in Brisbane.
I'm nervous for Australia at the moment because they are playing so much, and that's such a good option now. Nick White, who's going for a 50-22 and got it.
He may have stepped inside. They'll have to check this. He thinks he's got it. He's celebrating like he's just scored the winner in the FA Cup final. I wonder if he stepped back into his half.
No, the ball's been awarded to Australia, and that is what the balance which hasn't quite been there in the first half. Australia went through enough phase. The minute it slowed down, Nick White, after bringing that front line forward up because they're playing coast to coast, as you were saying, Chris Jones, Nick White is celebrating like he's just won a wicket for Australia. He is dancing. And now the crowd, once again, this energy, the momentum which you're talking about, all seems to be on Australia's side. Sam Underhill.
It's England ball. He did step inside. The ruck was just out. It was just inside the England half, and I definitely saw White step back, and they're looking again because
it's inside there. Look,
it's inside.
Really taken back, Joy. Yeah.
The tackler goes over the 50 metre. And then
I know.
Yeah.
But is the tackle inside when he's tackled?
The tackle is inside the ball. He falls over the 50 metre line.
Well, it's such a tight one.
That doesn't make sense.
See, it's taken back 100%, Andy.
Perfect. She's confirmed this tackle back into the half.
It's so close.
No,
the law is basically whether the ruck was inside or outside the half.
And I disagree.
Which half?
I thought you could only use the TMO for foul play.
No, you can use it a lot more. You use it a lot more these days.
22.
Well, evidently, as Cowan goes over the top, I think Ugo, the TMO comes in for so much more, forward passes and the like, and knock-ons and everything. It's you hear the TMO a lot more than you may have done a few years ago. But that was really tight. That was so tight. That could easily have been an Australian line-out, but the officials decided that White took it back into his own half. England line-out, they win the ball. Van Poortvliet clears. It took a deflection. It's going to end up in Australian hands on the halfway line. O'Connor throws a dummy. Got it in one hand, O'Connor, basketball style. And Corabetti picks and goes to can England stop this Wallaby momentum? So key for them just to try and keep the Australians down for a bit, because they are rampant Australia. They've scored 10 unanswered points. They've got the extra man. Nice ball out the back from Slipper. Lolaseo, Karevi goes past Porter, almost up to the 22. Law's in there trying to steal advantage. They're giving away penalties, England. They've got to be cleverer.
They're not getting anything at the breakdown. They didn't react quick enough to the referee last week. As we see another potential injury for Australia. That's Carden Neville, the second row that was called in for Swain this week. So they've got injury problems on the pitch for Australia, but they haven't in terms of momentum, field position, style of play. They've certainly got their mojo back, haven't they?
They have, and surely Australia have got to get Nick White to kick this to touch. He's just got to box kick it off.
Mike, we're good.
Yeah, he's pulled out the best kick of the day from an Australian point of view.
All good, fellas.
But they've got the penalty, Australia, and they need to keep the pressure on England. England need to somehow turn this around. It's been a problem England have had for ages. How do they stop momentum, get it back going in their direction?
Well, they've got 3 seconds. I mean, Nick Foster's had to come on for Neville, who's just gone on. So they've had 3 second row combinations in the last game and 3 quarters.
He's put it 8 metres out again.
He's a really good young player, Lolaseo, but his line kicking, I think if you're a kicking coach out there, you're thinking it's
so important at this level.
Easy gains to be made. So the line out, as you say, Ashley, is 10 metres out for Australia when it could be 5. Right, can England somehow keep Australia under wraps? We have to remember, have a 5-point lead. Sam Underhill's gone off, and that's a good thing, because he took a clattering and he looked like he'd been a bit dazed. So whether that's tactical or injury, either way, probably best to get Underhill out of the fray. There is a lot going on, isn't there? It's like Dunedin this morning when Ireland won in New Zealand.
At what point, if this is another serious injury which takes them out of the series, at what point does Will Skelton come back into contention?
I didn't see what ban he got, did you, for the red card in the Barbarians games? He would have got a few weeks for that. He'll certainly be back in the mix, you'd think, for the Rugby Championship. And it's just an injury to Neville. Caden Neville's coming off, as you touched upon. Ugo Monye, Nick Frost on. 22-17 to England, but all Australia at the moment.
I don't know how that injury happened, because Billy wasn't part of the ruck at all. I don't know if he got pushed into him or he went in from the side, but that's another horror knee injury for Australia.
Phantom injuries today. People nowhere near ending people's international rugby for the day, but despite all of that, despite the distractions, the things that we're talking about, the topics that have been threaded right throughout both test matches, Australia look fairly unflustered.
Yeah, replacement hooker who scored last week, Folai Fainga, is on, and he finds his man in the middle. Valentini peels round the corner, 7 metres out Australia. A score would take them level, a try would take them level, a converted try would put them in the lead for the first time today. Australia attack just to the left of the post, 10, 12 metres out or so. It is all the Wallabies who trail by 5 in Brisbane. Valentini's had a good game at number 8. Both number 8s have been excellent today. Out from White, Paisami's ball is loose to Lolaseo. Lolaseo dancing on the sponsors logo in centre field, just to the right of the post. There for Nick White. Driving on again is the number 4, Matt Phillip. Angus Bell's in a first but O'Connor goes back inside. Corabetti knocks it on, and that's what England need. A scrum and a chance perhaps just to slow down Australia's momentum.
But that is basically the impact we're seeing from the line kicking and from penalty. You cannot get any momentum from your line out 5 metres out because you're 10 metres further back. You've got to change what you're going to do, Australia. They've had to go for a different play. They can't go for a driving maul, which in this area of the pitch makes such a difference to your opportunities.
Yeah, it's the first time that Australia have actually not been able to complete or come away with points in the 22. They went through loads of phases. Luke Cowan-Dickey just been patched up. He's got fresh legs on if he wants him to make an impact, but I couldn't agree more. You kick that ball 5 metres out and you're catching and driving. 8-10 metres out, and you're having to do other things. You're asking the forwards to go through multi phases. But in terms of arresting the momentum of Australia, that knock-on from Corabetti and that level of physicality from Lewis Ludlam was so timely. Now, England need to be efficient and execute this exit as they've got a scrum about 17 metres out just under their sticks.
I make it 4 injuries for Australia in the first hour and at least a couple for England. Underhill, I think, took a big blow, and we know about Atoje, so 2 concussions potentially for England to monitor through the week. To go with Tom Curry flying, it's been brutal stuff, hasn't it?
Let's go, quick reset.
But it's in the balance, and it's been an engrossing game. Australia 17, England 22. 3.5 minutes left on the Marcus Smith-Simbing. Chris Ashton.
If Australia do go on to win this game, after all what you've just said's happened to them, if you take last week into consideration as well, the red card, it's a miracle if they win this series, considering what's happened to them so far.
Still Jack Van Poortvliet is on at number 9. He's had a really good hour on his first start. England win the penalty, they needed that. That is exactly what England needed, and this is where they can just try and stop that Wallaby train from speeding down the tracks, because Australia had their tails up, but England have won the penalty at the scrum, and they can just slow things down and take play back towards the halfway line and try Ugo Monye to get a bit of territory and field position.
Yeah, just start compounding these positive messages, get the energy back, silence the crowd, as well as take some time off the clock. 60 minutes into the game now, 2 minutes 52 seconds left on getting Marcus Smith back, and they haven't conceded a point.
Yeah, that would be, well, that far from the kick from the knock-on, yeah.
Sorry,
deliberate knock-on. No, exactly. If England can get away with just that 3 points from the start of the Simbin period, they would have done really well. Hour gone in Brisbane. Australia 17, England 22. Loads of great sport coming up, as always, on your home of live news and sport. Jabo Rabakina in the Wimbledon women's singles final. That's from 2 o'clock with our team at Wimbledon. Super League Magic Weekend, Euro 2022 tonight. We've got a big game, Netherlands-Sweden at 8 o'clock. We're across the cricket, the F1, the golf, the racing. It's all happening as Australia win the line out, and they still have the extra man. They've got big numbers here if they use it. Lolaseo out to O'Connor. He's got Paisami with him. He kicks James O'Connor out on the full. That's shoddy execution. Paisami was on his inside. He had a man on the outside. He kicked out on the full, and 2 or 3 things just going in his way, which they desperately needed.
Yeah, I mean, the things that are going well is Australia's defensive line out. That's the second or third they've been able to nick out of Johnny Hill's hands. You can see what O'Connor's trying to do, trying to banana that into that bottom left-hand corner, put that pressure back on England's line out, but he's overcooked that by about 5 or 6 metres. Poor mistake for someone of his calibre. Australia stealing 3 of England's line out, something which is often so useful, but we know the disruption they've had with Maro Itoje coming off.
Yeah, he's not had much rugby recently, James O'Connor, so he came on last week and he's been thrown straight in the deep end. He's not had much training time, but that's why I've not probably seen him in the starting lineup, and he's in that situation again. He's had more time training, but he won't be happy with the connection he got on that ball. He's just managed to take more time out of the game for England, just work the way back up the pitch, win this line out hopefully, and get back into the game.
The voice of Chris Ashton, multiple Premiership title winner, multiple European Cup winner. No one has scored more tries in Premiership or European Cup history than Chris Ashton.
Thanks, Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, it's true, isn't it? I didn't make it up. England could do with a few Ashton specials in this final quarter. They lead 22-17, and now they've gone back to their maul, and this is much better from England. They're rolling this maul, they're marching it down the field, they're looking to win the penalty, and they're going, 5-10 metres now. Excellent stuff from the England forwards, just what they needed after that Wallaby onslaught.
They could desperately just do with this penalty, taking the time out of it and taking those 3 points, but this has marched up the pitch about 20-30 metres.
Cowan-Dickey peels away. That is a 25-metre maul from England. Van Poortvliet out to Mako Vunipola. Still they're down to 14, England, so they went back to basics and did it extremely well. Ollie Chesham's the first. I wonder if Owen Farrell might think about a drop goal just to keep the scoreboard ticking over. Wild ball from Van Poortvliet is picked off by the Wallabies. Frustration from England. They'd mauled so well. And Karevi now finds Loloseo. Will the Wallabies attack with the extra man? They kick. Ludlam came through, but looked like it was timed okay, not to interest the officials. Stewart returns the kick. Big kick downfield from Freddie Stewart, well plucked out the air by Noah Loloseo, who slightly puts his teammate under pressure, but Wright comes storming away, and the Wallabies may be in here if he kicks for Corabetti. Wright chasing after it. Back goes the England cover. Is that guy Porter there? He's bundled into touch. Tommy Freeman it was. And Australia have gone 60, 70 metres from Tom Wright, and they now have the line out inside the England 22.
Kick strategy. At times, I am watching this game through my fingers. When Loloseo takes that ball in the 22, you're thinking, just put it back on your foot. No, he wants to play. Paisami, beautiful chip and chase. Guy Porter does really well to come back. And then he is ejected off the field of play like a troublesome man out of a nightclub. I mean, that is quality meterage gain from Australia.
These are the attention to detail we're talking with England. There's only 2 Australian players back there. Tom Wright is one of them, and Lewis Ludlam lets him go straight inside. We've got 5 England chasers. It's just a switch-off moment, which is an 80-metre gain for Australia.
And after that maul, England had marched them 25 metres with the maul. You felt they would have got minimum a penalty and been able to just add to their 22-17 lead, but it's now back in Wallaby possession, and it's only 20 minutes out from the England line.
Yeah, and interesting enough, England have actually changed their defensive setup now. Danny Care's actually on the pitch off of Jack Van Portfleet, sorry. Australia win this ball.
They don't. Oh, they misfire at the line out, Australia. They aren't straight.
Clearly not straight.
Clearly not straight, says Andrew Brace. And both sides are just letting the other off the hook here.
Option.
Oh, that's tight. That is.
If he was bowling, it would have gone on the next person's alley.
If we get the throw straight, then we have a fair contest.
Now, scrum time.
Joe Hayes on, wanting to have the same impact as Will Stewart, but
so that wasn't acceptable.
England, with Marcus Smith back on the pitch, just want to get their drills right here, won't they? Keep it in, go for a penalty, Ashley, or just get this off the pitch?
I think get off the pitch and reset again. Take more time out the clock. It's just how they do that. Through Billy at 8 and Danny Kerr kicking it off. Maybe go to the box kick, contest again. It worked well first half.
All New England front row. The scrum has crumpled. The referee wants it used, so no penalty. Billy Vunipola finds Guy Porter. Good carry, Guy Porter. Really needed that, England. Storm past Loloseo. Kerr now to Smith. They're not going to run it, are they, England? Yes, they are. Marcus Smith out to Freddie Stewart. Tommy Freeman, we're not seeing him much with the ball in hand. He's caught, but England have gone up to the halfway line. Good, positive, ambitious counter-attacking from England from that good Guy Porter carry. Now it's slightly slowed up, so Kerr is looking for a platform to kick. In the balance still in Brisbane. Australia 17, England 22. 15 minutes left on 5 Live Sport. Kerr's kick ends up back in the possession of Joe Hayes, and Hayes finds Farrell. Farrell with a kick pass, looking for Noel. Beautifully done, Owen Farrell. Jack Knowles one-on-one with Corabetti. He stands him up. Brilliant from Noel. Into the 22 he goes. Can England score the try that might kill off Australia and level this series? Maka Vunipola to Owen Farrell. Owen Farrell throws a dummy, tries to get the offload away. They're queuing up to the left, England. Danny Kerr, Billy Vunipola skips past Leota, offloads to Smith. Marcus Smith finds Mako Vunipola. Mako's about 5 metres out, the Saracens man. There for Danny Kerr. Kerr to Smith. Numbers for England, but back inside they go to Freddie Stewart, who stretches. He doesn't stretch. He sets it up. Kerr's digging for it. Despairingly, England try to recycle this ball. They lead by 5. A try would take the lead to 10 and put them a huge step towards a Sydney decider. Matter of inches away, England. They've managed just about to repel that Wallaby onslaught. And they pick and go so close to the line. Hayes is in there. So too Luke Cowan-Dickey. 1 metre out, England. Cowan-Dickey peels round the corner. Laws has it at the back. They pick and go again. Laws adds his weight to the ball carrier. Just to the right of the post. England couldn't be closer. They have to score from this. They have to put away their chances. Up to the line they go. Are they over? Or has it been held for a goal line dropout? It has. But there will be a penalty. And England will have 3 at least, but it could have been loads more.
Kicking exceptional. We've seen Australia use the ball in hand going from coast to coast. England have done that with the boot, stretching them one way. Owen Farrell then looking up. putting the ball, I mean, he may as well have passed it to him with that level of accuracy. Jack Noel does so well to get into space, beat a couple of defenders, and that level of momentum. Just seeing another replay of it. Jack Noel is in so much space, and we know how tricky a customer he is. Off the right past Corabetti, inside Liotta, and then inside another Australian defender. But that level of play, and talk about momentum, it all started with the scrum 5 metres out. They've been able to work their way up the pitch and get their just rewards, and that level of comfortability which they'll be feeling now, taking England out to 8 points.
Yeah, all started with a Guy Porter fantastic carry, getting over the gain line and getting an extra metre on the floor. Just set up Marcus Smith's running game. I mean, he couldn't have done much more, and it's turned into a 90-metre gain and 3 points. And all the crucial now, 8 points ahead, making a difference more than a try.
Owen Farrell makes no mistake. He kicks the penalty. His 6th penalty, isn't it? To go with his conversion, and Billy Vunipola's try. So 20 points from the boot of Owen Farrell, and England have a 25-17 lead. Not quite enough yet, but almost there. England 13 minutes away from levelling this series, and for all the talk coming out of the England camp about development and performance, a win would be priceless to stop their losing run and just steer the English chariot back on track. Kicked off by Lolaseo. Can England get their drills right from the restart? Noel finds Laws. Laws skips and then sets it up. The gap is 8. Care is on. England using their bench, although the likes of Henry Arundel, Will Joseph do risk putting on the rookies, the teenagers, the 19-year-olds, into this Brisbane cauldron. Good kick, Care downfield. He goes for distance rather than a contest. And that's a good England chase. Smith's up there, Noel's up there, so too Billy Vunipola. Lolaseo sets it up, so their fly half is on the floor, Australia. As replacement scrum half, Gordon sent it out. Paisami's almost away. He's looked dangerous, Paisami, without having too much ball. Gordon comes to the left. Snappy pass out to Pete Samu, who scored last weekend. Here is James O'Connor stepping inside Billy Vunipola. Billy Vunipola looks to steal, can't quite, or has he? Yes, he has. Great steal by Vunipola's having a stormer today. England were caught in possession. It's a penalty to Australia.
Sealing off the ball control after the great work of Billy Vunipola, who won the ball. Joe Hayes goes into 9, he picks the ball up, which means the ball is out. Gets slightly confused, and then the England forwards flop on top of it. Billy Vunipola's furious because so much good work, and off the back of that good work, James O'Connor's now got the ball in his hand. Let's see how many metres he can steal off. He's kicking from 40 out. He does the opposite. He's kicked it too long.
But then it's been kept in play.
No, but they've got the laws wrong. Danny Care, who's outside of the field of play, hits it in, both feet out of the field of play, which should mean that Australia have the line out 5 metres out. But anyhow,
we play on as England send up a Gary Owen. It is really breaking up. Great take that by Slipper. And Gordon, they're looking for a 50-22 Australia. The scrum half's desperate to pull this one off. That one's going to go dead. I do feel that Australia's best bet is probably to keep the ball in the hand and try and stretch the defence. Stewart kicks, but he's tired. You can't blame him, Freddie Stewart. Australia line out 22.
But we're just seeing a replay of Danny Care keep the ball in, but keeping it in whilst being out. If you touch the ball when you're out,
you've then got to go back in.
You've then got to go back in. So that should have been a 5 metre line out to Australia, but 3 officials and 1 in the truck, it's all been missed.
Or is it a scrum back if he's missed his touch?
Didn't miss touch, he was within the field of play.
Did it go in? I wondered if, because
Danny wouldn't have looked to keep it in.
Yeah, I know. It was a strange old episode. Anyway, England have made a change. Henry Arundel is on for Tommy Freeman. 10.5 minutes left. England are almost there. Australia 17, England 25. What are you thinking, Chris Ashton? If England can just hold out the Wallabies here, they're sending this to the cider, aren't they? And they get up and steal it through Laws, and the referee's in the way. Smith dives on it, and it's back in English possession.
The bench is on now, so we've got to control this game, and Danny's done that brilliantly so far since he's gone in. We just need to go back to the box-kicking game, chase, and when we get momentum and see opportunity, take it at the right time. Just don't force it for the last 10 minutes. We're completely in control here. 8 points up, 10 minutes left.
Kerr kicks, that looks nicely weighted from the veteran. Well taken. Oh, it's a penalty, Australia.
It's Henry Arundel. His first touch in international rugby last week, decidedly better than that. Just pushing Australians.
Yeah, Tom Wright is taking him in the air. It's just a little bit of over-enthusiasm. It's very soft, isn't it? He really didn't need to do it. Well, I think he pushed one Australian and then took the other one out in the air. So it definitely a penalty. But time is ticking. Time's against Australia. Time is favouring England. Australia 17, England 25. 9 minutes left in Brisbane, Ugo Monye.
The big moments at the moment. Australia, who went from conversing everything to not being able to string anything together. They've been gifted opportunities, missed line-outs, turnover, but this line-out a lot better.
They do get their line-out right for the first time in a while, as Valentini sets it up in the centre of the park. Billy Vunipola tried to steal it. It's such a good game as Vunipola. Here goes Samu, who scored last week. He's into centre field. Ludlam's on that ball, but there for Australia, Gordon Lolaseo over on the right touchline, James O'Connor. England will be fine with this, and they've won the penalty, England. Laws is all over the ball, the captain's intervention, and you can see from the English body language, they know they've almost got the job done here. Laws punches the ball away, Jason Robinson style from 03, and he wins the penalty. Australia just lacking that incisiveness in attack we've seen a fair bit today.
Well, it's such a good position for Courtney Laws to find himself in between those 15-metre channels, right near the touchline. He gets over the ball, and you've got Lolaseo trying to clear him out. That is a physical mismatch. We know how competitive the breakdown has been, and England are able to release that pressure and just march away back into Australia's half.
How is Courtney doing that? The man's what, 6'8", 6'7"? And he's getting down there quicker than 3 Australians stealing the ball.
He's not your natural shape for a jackler, is he? You know, normally it pays to be squat with a low centre of gravity, but he must have such strong arms and such good balance. England, 10-metre line inside the Australian half. They lead by 8, and they can put this one to bed now.
Get the drills right now, get a penalty, and see this game off.
First job is to win the line-out. The Exeter combination makes sure of that, with Cowan-Dickey throwing to Hill at the tail. England's maul was driving Australia back metre upon metre. They've got another penalty. Exactly what Ugo Monye called for. Get your drill right, win the penalty, and win the game down here. Kerr out to Farrell, who's looking for this cross pass. Again, Australia are narrow, so Noel takes it unopposed. Bumbled into touch by Corabetti, but it will be an England penalty. And you would imagine Owen Farrell will just keep adding to his tally, because 11 points would ask Australia to score 2 tries in the last 6 minutes, and that would be too much, you would feel, for the men in goal.
It's quite nice that England, despite Australia having that purple patch in between the 50 and 65-minute mark, the thing that's got them back into the game is the thing they went to at the start of the game. We were chatting to Eddie Jones at the start of the week about these final quarters, messaging. Have this English team slightly forgotten the knack of knowing how to win? Well, the last couple of driving line-outs, the work at the breakdown would say anything but. They're looking really composed. At the moment, there's a bit of a break, and you've got men in their huddles, messages being sent around. And Owen Farrell, who hasn't looked like missing at all, has a huge opportunity now to add another 3 points to it.
Yeah, so far the benches have been for both teams probably the difference at the end of this game. The Australia bench just hasn't had the impact, and some of them have been forced because of injury, big injuries. Maybe that's played a little bit too much against Australia, and where England's bench has come on and made a real impact so far towards the end of the game.
Well, the reaction with Chris Ashton and Ugo Monye coming up on the Rugby Union Weekly podcast. We'll have an On The Whistle pod for you coming out later on this afternoon.
Where can you find it?
BBC Sounds and all the usual podcast places. And we'll be podding again Monday, will we?
We'll pod again Monday, we'll pod again Thursday, we'll give you live commentary again next Saturday, we'll give you another pod next Saturday night. I mean, it's never ending.
Great PR, Ugo Monye. So you got PR for us superbly. Australia 17, England 25, 6.5 minutes left. And this, Chris Ashton, is exactly what England want, because when the Australians had their tails up, everything was happening at pace, wasn't it? It was all frantic. The game's been slowed down. England had the penalty. The crowd are getting frustrated. That's where you want to be away from home, especially when you've lost a few games in a row and the pressure is swirling around you.
Yeah, I think that the best part of it is when Australia did come back early in the second half, they were able to manage it and just defend and slow the game down at the right times and choose the right option. Something that we definitely lacked last week. Around 60 minutes is the point when England, collapsed almost and let Australia come back into the game. They haven't done that today. They've managed to wrestle momentum back, and we're under no doubt that this is a good England team. They just haven't been clicking, but they have today.
And what confidence a win would give them. They are 6 minutes away from getting just that. Earlier, Ireland making history in New Zealand, so the Northern Hemisphere, the home unions, are going 2 from 2. Farrell, hardest kick he's probably had today, 40 metres, on the cross of the 15 and the 10. This deliberate run-up. The strike just pulled it to the left, doesn't he, Farrell? Had the distance, but maybe just strained that extra sinew, and he pulled it to the left. Australia don't dot it down. They would have had a 22 because it was a kick, but they clear their lines almost up to halfway.
I think such a poor management option from Australia. They could have had a dropout or kick to touch. Where have England been their strongest? At the line-out. The last two, they've been marched back, probably a combined meterage of 50. So they kick to touch to go to the place where England are, and you've got the clock against you. There's 5 minutes, 10 seconds left, and you give England a line-out. They're not going to try and play.
Cowan-Dickie throws to the front. Courtney Lawes, England's maul, has been getting a lot of change. And again, they're beautifully set up here with Cowan-Dickie at the tail, just edging forward inch by inch, England. Nicely formed, they've gone a few metres, and still they go. Kerr, though, out to Farrell, finds Lewis Ludlam, who just sets it up. England just playing pretty low-risk stuff. Why wouldn't you when you're 25-17 up with the clock on your side as well? 4.5 minutes to go in Brisbane. Australia 17, England 25. Billy Vunipola, who's just not stopped. He makes another few metres with a trademark charge. Centre field, 10-metre line. England in Australian territory, where they've spent a lot of this game, especially in that first 30 minutes. Back to Marcus Smith, who's going to go to the boot. He sends it cross field. That might be a little too deep. It is. Well taken, James O'Connor. I feel O'Connor needs to tap and go there. Not too much time for Australia to take their time. And O'Connor will kick. He finds...
He needs to keep this on the pitch.
He has. Yeah, good spot, Ugo. He has kept it in field, and then Smith sends it up. But there's not as much urgency around Australia as you might expect. Lolaseo injects emergency. He takes it up to the 10-metre line. They've got to play Australia. They only got 4 minutes to make up an 8-point gap. Karevi, but Farrell is up there to make the tackle. He missed it, but he put Karevi under so much pressure. Gordon scoots to the left. Australia now at the back they come. O'Connor's got a man to this left touchline. It's Marika Koroibete from Lolaseo's pass into the English half they go. Koroibete wasn't held, so he drives on almost up to the 10-metre line. England just need to show their composure in defence. Paisami out to the forwards in the middle of the park. But still, they've got to go 45+ metres, 50 now as they attack from halfway, Australia. Rob Valentini drives up to the 10-metre line, but England have an 8-point lead. They won't mind this at all. They've just got to keep their discipline. Angus Bell can't quite get it away. Wright wanted the offload. Koroibete comes from the left touchline. It was forward, and that will surely be that. Scrum, England. The defence holds firm, and Australians ruefully shake their heads.
That's the game, isn't it? That's the last real opportunity. Needed 2 scores. Plenty of invention, lots of hard running, but very good discipline from England. They didn't want to give them anything easy. Trying to force it. Koroibete thinks he spots the gap. Well marshalled by Joe Hayes and Danny Kerr. Has brought that level of calm and experience, all those qualities which are needed to see this game out.
You mentioned the bench, Chris Ashton, and how Australia's hasn't had the impact. You know, Nick White's gone off and not quite been the same team, have they, since he was on pulling the strings? No,
he was the main man last week as well. Losing Quade Cooper in the way they did before the game, they needed someone with such experience, and he controlled the game almost like a French 9 would, controlling the game like the 10, like they did back in the day. And he's got them back into this today, so losing him, he does so much for the team in controlling how they want to play. The bench just hasn't got the depth that England has, and we've seen. I mean, you take Tupou off and you put James Slipper off. you're not replacing like for like at all there. You're losing an awful lot. And unless you're in control of the game, you're not going to have the impact that you need from your benches, which England's has. We've seen Mako carrying, Lewis Ludlam carrying hard and tackling hard. They've made a difference. Danny Kerr's come and controlled the game, as you would expect from an experienced player like he has. The decision to get them on at the right time has paid dividends for England.
Guy Porter, 77 minutes so far on debut. Assessment of him, Ashley?
Solid, as my experience of Guy has been. He's a solid player. He will run all day, he'll defend, and he'll carry the way he has. If that's what Eddie's after, his work today, then he is your man for the job.
The scrum splinters, England win the penalty. That call, I think, came from one of the assistant referees. And look at England, slaps on the back. The scrum splintered on this near side.
Number 1, clearly injured.
And Angus Bell, I mean, you can't blame him because he's had to play 80 metres, hasn't he? 80 minutes, hasn't he, guys? Because he went off, and Scott Seo's got 70-plus caps. The Brumby, he came on and then went straight off injured. So Australia again have been hit hard by injuries, but it's been a much more composed England performance. They threatened to let the game get away from them around the 50-minute mark, but they've weathered that Australian storm, and now they lead 25-17, 90 seconds left, and they have the line out deep in Australian territory.
What's actually really nice and reassuring, I think, from an English fan's perspective, is the pace and the collective cohesion of England in the opening 20, getting points on the board, 19-0 up at one point, and then the final 20 minutes, that level of composure where Australia have been desperate. Will Joseph, massive moment for him and the Joseph family coming on for debut with 90 seconds to go.
Yeah, following the footsteps of older brother Jonathan, who won 50-plus caps for England and a Grand Slam winner in 2016. A big part of the success here as well on the tour of Australia that summer. Cowan-Dickey is caught at the back of the maul. England's maul has been good in this second half, and this final quarter especially, hasn't it? And it's been a big source of control for England. Billy Vunipola again, the relentless Billy Vunipola. He drives to within 30 metres, 1 minute left. And this is what you want to be if you're Danny Kerr back in the England side, just controlling matters to the tune of Swing Low Sweet Chariot from the travelling England fans to Brisbane. 22 in Australian territory. Can England get one more score to put some lovely gloss on the scoreline? 22, centre field. Lewis Ludlam's the willing ball carrier. He sets it up. There for Kerr. Kerr comes to the left. Will Joseph is tackled hard by Samu, and he may have been turned over as well. He has. Big intervention by Pete Samu. They've got to go quickly, Australia. They do. Karevi taps, tries to catch England on the back foot. Shovel down the line. Tom Wright, who sparked a few things in the second half. He goes almost up to the halfway line, but it's too little too late, I think, for Australia. If they do score, it will surely only be a consolation with 10 seconds left. O'Connor out to Hunter Paisami. And it's a dodgy clear out. Valentini on Farrell.
That was reckless.
England had the penalty. They've won the game.
Yes, coming from about 10-15 metres. Missed everyone. Gone off his feet. Discipline. Leaving Australia there. And that's it.
England kick it out. And they win in Brisbane 6 years on from that famous win in 2016. One of the best wins of Eddie Jones's tenure, that was. This one is equally, if not more important. Under pressure, England. Eddie Jones under the pump as well. After a losing run, they needed a result. For all the talk of performance, it's the win that really counts, and England have that win. And they keep the series alive. And we have a decider in Sydney to look forward to next Saturday. Australia 17, England 25. Chris Ashton, how big a win and performance is that for England?
Yeah, great to see. And what's even better is how they've gone about it. They've controlled the game. Apart from 15-20 minutes in the middle of the match, they've controlled everything. They dictated the game to Australia, which is what we want and what the England team is capable of. Right from the off, we knew they were on the edge. They wanted the game. They put them on the back foot, Australia, and controlled it, took the points at the right time, and just an all-round great performance from England.
Just looking at the team, and to a man, everyone's gone on and done their job. Will Stewart, brilliant job in the scrum. Jamie George, liner. Ellis Genge, we know what he brings. Maro Itoje obviously went off early, and I can't list them all, but I'm looking at every single person and what they should contribute to the team. they've gone on and done that, and that's why that collective performance has looked so impressive. So congratulations to England in a do-or-die scenario, pressure mounting. They look very comfortable today.
Absolutely. England have got the job done. An incredibly important win, and it keeps the series alive as well. Gigi, all over in Brisbane. Australia 17, England 25.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. It was an enjoyable listen. Chris Jones, Chris Ashton, Ugo Monye, but their work is not yet done because they'll be putting together and recording a Rugby Union weekly podcast.